is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Hammered right field. That one back on its way and gone. Michael Busch will touch them all. His 13th of the year, and the Cubs jump out front. Struck him out. Ball game. Cubs win. Palencia finishes it off.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do what we have done for the last couple of weeks, T-Bone, where you get excited and you jump on and you're like, woohoo, the Cardinals. And then the next bad stunt, you're like, I think I might jump. We're not going to do it. We're going to react level-headed.
You're just talking about yourself
No,
out loud?
I'm talking about you. Bradford, you're not level-headed at all. The Cardinals get shut out twice.
Well, I know Bradford's not.
The Cardinals get shut out twice by the Chicago Cubs. Is the offense just regressing now? Is the offense just because there's no Ivan Herrera, your offense is now back to, maybe we'll score some runs this evening? And it seems odd for me to say that, T-Bone, when you went out there in the first game against the Cubs and scored 8 with, 4 home runs? You go out there in the second game against the Cubs, you score 8 with, 4 home runs? And then you just lay 2 goose eggs against the left-handed pitchers, Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga. I'd be lying if I saying it wasn't concerning, though. Not so much of now they're going to start getting shut out and not create any offense.
We're never going to score again.
By the way, he's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Bradford. That's Bradford Bruns. I'm not Bradford Bruns.
Alex Ferrario.
I'm Alex Ferrario. I can't use alliteration like Bradford can. The Cardinals lose yesterday 3-0. They split the series against the Cubs at Busch Stadium, and the Cardinals offense goes quiet. I don't think they're going to be shut out for the rest of this season. I don't think this team is going to fall to the worst offense in Major League Baseball, T-Bone. I do think that it was a little alarming in terms of you don't have Ivan Herrera. Lars Nootbaar wasn't playing for you, who was turning into a little bit more of a hot bat for you recently. And although Jordan Walker has not been performing well, he is a right-handed bat option. Against 2 lefties, 2 of the best lefties on the Chicago Cubs pitching staff this season right now, Cardinals can't generate any offense against them with runners in scoring position. That is concerning, considering Ivan Herrera might not be back until post-All-Star break.
Yeah, I said this yesterday coming off the loss to Matthew Boyd when they got shut out and shellacked in Game 3, and I thought yesterday just kind of reinforced it. Man, without Ivan Herrera, they don't have a right-handed bat.
Right.
That really lengthens the lineup because you've got Contreras, but Contreras is starting to go through it again. Over the last 2 weeks, he's hitting 194. OPS is at 720, so he's been fine. He's just not hitting for average. And then when you look at the rest of their lineup, it's just a bunch of lefties, right? Like you got Brendan Donovan up there who's, as Bradford had mentioned, quietly going through it in the office, hitting 216. He's going to ultimately be fine. But as you start to see some of these lefty bats start to cool off, Nolan Gorman starting to cool off a little bit, Nootbaar, who is dealing with a little bit of that side issue the last 2 games of this series, and now you take out Ivan Herrera, and all of a sudden it is, this lineup that has to operate like the Blues, which is, hey, we're going to beat you with kind of a pack mentality, right? We're going to be deep 1 through 7. All of a sudden, you start plucking pieces away. Guys start to go cold a little bit, and now you don't have who could potentially be. The jury's going to be out on him, Ivan Herrera, but he's kind of serves as their placeholder as the quote unquote star bat.
Yeah.
He's not a star, but right now he's kind of their placeholder for that because he's been very good. Now it's just a lot harder for them to score, right? Now you are going to see the stretch where it is, 24 innings where they haven't scored a run, where they've been shut out the last 2 games. Like, it's now suddenly going to happen. Do I think it's like time to panic? No. I think you're going to see them struggle against lefties, though, while Ivan Herrera is hurt, while Jordan Walker is on the IL. I think they're going to have some issues when it comes to facing left-handed starters. When they go up against righties, I expect they're going to be fine, because you know what their left-handed bats do? They mash righties.
Yeah.
So I just think what the back end of this series showed you is right now with their limitations, with their lack of right-handed options, they are just going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to facing left-handed starters while Ivan Herrera and Jordan Walker are on the IL.
And beyond that, it's against starters that you're going to see in a playoff matchup.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to get too alarmed here, trying to keep it level-headed, but your offense that busted out against the White Sox was the White Sox. Now, they have okay pitchers, but it's not dominant guys. the 2 games against the Reds, you went up against Brady Singer, and if I remember correctly, it was like a bullpen game for them. But then when they went up against Abbott, who was one of their top guys, you picked up 1 run. Now, you beat the bottom half of the rotation in the Cubs' first 2 games, but then when you go up against Boyd and Imanaga, yes, they're lefties, but those are top end of the rotation pitchers for the Cubs. Like, is that getting concerning at all for you? You're starting to see the offense regress against those top-level pitchers?
I don't think so, just because they are not at full strength. And it's mostly because of, like, if Ivan Herrera was healthy and in this lineup, maybe I would have some concerns, but I've already seen them beat some of the best starters, and I don't think they suddenly aren't able to hit those guys. Like, it's hard to hit the best arms in baseball, but we've seen them beat Paul Skeens, right? We saw them beat Aaron Nola with Philadelphia. We saw them push Skubal. I mean, the Tigers won that game that Skubal started.
Absolutely.
But the Cardinals got him out. He didn't even go 6 innings in it. So I'm not concerned. I think it's just because right now, like, you're missing your guy, right? The guy that's kind of the lead in the charge, and Ivan Herrera is out on the IL again. So I'm not overly worried. When he comes back, and if they struggle, then I'm more open to having that conversation about, okay, this is what happens. Also, like, just tip your cap. Like, these are the best arms in baseball.
Imanaga was awesome.
Anytime you have a great pitcher versus a great hitter, you know what happens? The great hitter has success 30% of the time, right?
Exactly.
And that's why I just lean towards, I'm not
that
overly
number
worried.
up.
I did not make that number up. 300's a good batting average. So that's how I got to 30%.
Purely scientific. Guys, yesterday I was pretty adamant about the fact that I believed in the series finale, if you were competitive, if you basically took it right there into inning number 9 and you were in the game, I wasn't going to have a lot of worries. And you were in that baseball game. You had a couple of mental gaffes, namely Wilson Contreras. We understand that. But even Andre Palante was solid. He was good enough. He gave you 5 innings. He scattered 7 hits. Imanaga, Boyd, it's really the confluence of, yes, certain guys going through it in the order, not having all of your weapons also at your disposal, combined with going up against upper echelon starting pitching from the left side. That's not why I'm going to throw a fit here. I am interested, flashing forward a bit to Sunday, to see exactly how this lineup is going to fare against a Logan Allen, who's been fine this year, hasn't been great by any means, but what happens in each of the next 2 games? You're back to facing right-handed, manageable starters, so I'm really interested to see, one, how the makeup of the lineup is for Oli Marmol tonight. Exactly to what degree a new part potentially is available this weekend, we don't know, because I do think that changes the complexion as well of your lineup. But no, we're not about here to actually be up in arms, because you have faced a number of top-tier guys from that left side. And Imanaga, we understand he was an all-star last season. He only went 5 innings yesterday, yes, but that Cubs bullpen was on point, and you just couldn't lock it down yesterday. Let's not worry, though.
I will say this, and look, everything seems to point towards Newpart's going to be back. I've also seen the Cardinals, with their injury history.
Yeah, I was going to say.
If Newpart doesn't recover well from whatever it was they gave him to try and come back, now there might be time for concern, because now you're talking about plucking a left-handed bat that helps you against righties. You pluck a right-handed bat that helps you against lefties, and Ivan Herrera. And as we saw with their depth, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Fermin was your answer for when Walker went down. Like, they just don't have a ton of depth options. But again, it sounds like Newbar's going to be healthy. I'm just throwing that out there because there is the possibility.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's healthy. To your point, we'll see what the lineup looks like. And they should fare decently well against, I think, some of these righties that you're going to see from Cleveland this weekend.
I promise I'm not turning into Debbie Downer, but I do kind of feel like the Incredible Hulk's trying to bust out right now.
No.
Did it feel like they left something on the table against this Cubs in the series? I know we talked about this yesterday of how I felt like, T-Bone, you had to win this series versus split, and you and I were on separate ends of the table with that. But, man, I understand you still showed the ability to beat up on the Cubs, but it just, to me, felt like it dampered down the series. This was one, and I said this on Monday, you felt like you needed to win this series because then you could at least gain a game on the Chicago Cubs, regardless of what Milwaukee did. But you also then put pressure on Chicago going into their next series of taking on the Houston Astros before you're going to see them again on the 4th of July weekend. Splitting it just, I don't know, it makes you feel kind of dirty to where it's like, man, you left something on the table for you to pounce on and then add to that momentum going into that Cubs series in Wrigley. Because, man, if you lose 2 of 3 in the series against the Cubs when you're out at Wrigley, man, now you're going to be 2 more games behind them in that chase for that NL Central spot. And the wild card, I understand Giants are still going through it right now. Padres are starting to heat up a little bit more, but the wild card seems less desirable than that NL Central crown.
Yeah, I don't feel that way. I feel like the story is more of a to be continued than this is disappointing because you split at home. You are right, though. Like, they dropped 2 or 3 to Chicago, up in Chicago. I think there might be a fair conversation to be had about, okay, can you really catch the Cubs in the NL Central, especially if you don't really gain any ground and, in fact, lose ground prior to that series. I think earning a split against them showed, like, hey, we're kind of right there with them. Yeah, they struggled against 2 of their best lefties. Again, I think there's a caveat to that. You're missing Ivan freaking Herrera.
Yeah.
But I'm not overly concerned. I also would add this, like, you also lost the games with Fetty and Palante. Like, we're being honest, those are guys you're looking to upgrade from in your rotation.
Fair.
If you're a buyer at the trade deadline. And the starts you won with Michael McGreevy and then one of your best lefties and Matthew Liberatore, who shoved against them. So
you also lost because your offense went quiet. And I know you didn't have Herrera, but there are multiple guys. Like, we talk so much about this offense of how it's not one guy that carries them. Isn't that a little problematic that one guy is actually carrying this offense? Or at least you're learning it?
I don't think so, because I think the problem with their offense is, though, yes, they are the pack, to your point, of like 1 to 7. They don't have that star that is the linchpin that is, hey, this guy's consistent for 6 months.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about this a couple days ago with BK, where it's, hey, Nootbaar, I think, is going to be a guy that, like, 1 month he looks great. Another month he looks like a guy that doesn't belong in the big leagues. And when you have about 7 of those guys that are like 10 to 15% above league average, your offense is going to go through these highs and lows that we've seen so far. So I just view this as hey, it was a 2-game, holy crap, what the hell just happened to us moment. I don't think it's anything to be that concerned of, but it does put more pressure on them. I do agree okay, that series in Chicago, July 4th weekend, like, you need 2 or 3 if you're going to even hypothesize the idea of, hey, we think we can win the NL Central.
Yeah.
And I also would add this. I don't know how the front office views this. To me, if you're still in the wild card race, you're a buyer, right? I'm not just looking at the division, but I don't know how the front office is doing that when they have one of the best assets that'll be available to trade deadline. Do they really care about a division, or do they really care, about a wild card berth? Or do they say, hey, this needs to be more about the division than it should be about getting one of those 3 wild card spots?
Yeah, taking the first 2 in the series may have created slightly unrealistic expectations as far as going for a sweep or winning the 3 of 4, but you took care of the necessary business in those first 2 contests. And to your last point, Tanner, I think that this particular setup for the Cardinals here, we understand, we have talked so much even this week about the lack of the superstar. How do you arrive at that point? How do you uncover that gem? Well, it's always going to be an issue for the Cardinals. I don't care what your approach is. I don't care what the technique and the philosophy is that has been adapted basically since Brant Brown was introduced as the hitting coach. When you don't have a surplus of pop, and we understand here that the Cardinals are just ranked 19th in Major League Baseball with 81, when you have to resort to that death by 1,000 paper cut style of approach, if you're going to gap, you don't have somebody who's consistently driving it out of the yard. And Ivan Herrera even isn't that guy yet. This is what can happen, especially when you go up against elite pitching.
Well, you're going up against a Spider-Man mean team tonight, the Cleveland Guardians. Now, Spider-Man meaning they're a half game out of a wild card spot and sitting kind of close to a playoff spot. Now, the difference is they're a minus 32 run differential, and of course the Cardinals are not that bad. But you got a 3-game set against the Cleveland Guardians. That begins tonight with Sonny Gray on the mound. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We've got our Air Comfort Service text line live and active. Jump on in there, 314-399-9646. Also, a graveyard chat over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. I guarantee there's going to be a lot of hockey conversation over there. We've got Brad Thompson in the 1 o'clock hour talking Cardinals baseball with us. We've got Mike McKenna coming up at 12. And on the other side, has the offseason officially shifted for the Blues from finding a centerman to upgrading defense? Sure seems like it with all these rumors out there. We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So it seems like the Noah Dobson rumors are kaput. Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. I know, last night, or yesterday, I should say.
I went to bed dreaming of Noah Dobson.
Chris Johnston of The Athletic
put
it out there that, hey, the Blues and the Canadians are the two teams tied to Noah Dobson. Cool. The excitement started to build. And then this morning, it was, hey, it's the Canadians and the Blue Jackets that are the two teams that are in the Dobson sweepstakes. Now, some of this is because Dobson-Friedman reported his preference to stay in the Eastern Conference, and the other, it sounds like the starting point in terms of a contract negotiation is $10.5 million. To me, I think the Blues are probably like, no chance on that one. But that doesn't mean the Blues are done with a defenseman. Because earlier today, David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period put it out there that the teams that were in on Noah Dobson are now shifting to Buffalo's Bo Byram. And this is where it started to get a little bit intriguing, T-Bone. We have spent pretty much every day of the offseason for the Blues talking about the upgrade at the center position, finding an upgrade for Oskar Sundqvist so that Sundqvist could be used in maybe a better role suited for him this upcoming season. And frankly, that's how this team gets 5 to 10% better. Sure sounds like the Blues at least believe 5 to 10% better can come on the defensive side. I'm a little surprised that they're shifting their mindset towards upgrading the defense if Byram is the one that they're going after, or if Noah Dobson was the one that they're going after. It kind of changes how I'm viewing this offseason for the Blues.
Yeah, I think this is the signal from them, and we talked about this last week, I think it was. Boy, the days blend together.
They all do.
When we had Army's availability, and Army basically made it sound like they're not going to go to the free agent market, and the reason I say that is because like, it felt like he was expecting some shell shock on the contracts, and I don't think the Blues want to block Dalibor Dvorsky. There's not a ton of trade options. Like, it sounds like Nicholas Waugh is available from Vegas, so like that one could make sense for the Blues. But it feels hard to pinpoint who the guy is that you're talking about to come in at that center spot, even for just the third line center, right? Because like some of the options, like we've talked about Nick Bustad from Utah. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I know you like him, so maybe that's a guy that they could go after. I like Granlund. You don't like Granlund. Yeah. So, like, it's picking which poison pill you want to take, right?
Red or blue pill, which one you want?
Each guy's got something they're not very good at. Right. And some it's offense, some it's defense. So, I think they view it as, boy, if there is a spot for us to really upgrade, it probably is defense to what you're talking about at that 5% better mark. Now, Dobson, I could have convinced myself on, right? Like, I know we've gone back and forth on what his ceiling is for the St. Louis Blues. Yeah. Very good offensively, at least he was 2 years ago. Had a bit of a down year this year. There are questions about his defensive skill, but now that you're out on him, like the thing that I don't understand about the Bo Byram thing is he's on the left side. He's a left defenseman. He's not on the right. And he plays this offhand.
Like last season, he spent the entire season playing on the right side with Rasmus Dahlin on the top four. So he can do the right side. I always get nervous when guys play their offhand because the preference, obviously, Broberg's a perfect example of this, to play on the hand that you're used to. But some guys are fine with playing whatever side of it as long as they're getting top 4 minutes.
And if he is, then you know what? Maybe he makes sense for the Blues. But even then, like to that point of, well, maybe he could play on his offside. Is he playing ahead of Falk? I guess so, but they seem to like Justin Falk from a year ago. So I can understand why they'd convince himself of going towards the defensive route of, hey, we believe that we can create, as we've talked about, an elite unit with our blue line. I don't know if Bo Byram fits into that picture. I could have convinced myself on Dobson. I don't know about Byram.
Yeah, I mean, I think Byram is almost the same as Dobson, if that makes any sense. Like, he's not as big as Dobson, but he's younger than Dobson. He produces, I think he had 10 goals and 45, 50 points last season. Like, I think he's a top 4 that fits into your role, just like Noah Dobson would. I've heard a lot of things, differing theories on Dobson, to where I've been kind of torn with that. But here was my bigger question on going the defensive route. Are you getting 5 to 10% better? Because if you've also noticed on the trade board by Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravalli, Kyrou went from number 2 on the list down to like 23. And so, okay, that kind of tells you that maybe Kyrou was involved in the Dobson conversation. That's died away, and Kyrou dips out of this. But Saravalli said Kyrou was floated out there for Peterka. My tinfoil theory on this was I think Kyrou was floated out there for Peterka and Byram. and that disappeared. They were like, nope, we're going to try and get 2 separate deals done with Byram and Peterka to get as much return as possible. So we'll call you if we get to Byram, but it's not happening for both of them. The Blues said, fine, move on from that. But if you, and I don't think, I think Kairu's an overpay to get a Byram. But
I agree.
If you trade out Kairu to get a Byram and don't upgrade your center position and lose the winger for that offense, I heard Jamie Rivers talking about this on the Fast Lane yesterday. Where are you replacing that 70 points? Are you getting 5 to 10% better with Bo Byram on this roster or defenseman X, whoever that may be, if you're trading away one of your roster players? Like, that to me is the bigger question. I think if you can become an elite defensive team, you can have success, but you're also getting rid of somebody in your top 6, if it's Kairu, if it's Bolduc, whomever it might be, that potentially makes your team not as good as it was in theory on paper.
Yeah, replacing the 70 points from Kairu, Snuggerud probably eats up a pretty good chunk of that. Like, you're talking about doing this in the aggregate when it comes to your roster. And then to your point, you probably got to go out to the market, get a third line. I mean, they have to get a third line center still in my mind. So that third line center probably helps with that. Then maybe the winger that you have to bring in because you've made the trade of Jordan Kyrou off the roster because they don't have anything else internally. And I'm not expecting Dvorak to be a guy that's on the team and starts as a winger for them. I think you can find the replacement for the Kyrou point production if you were to trade him. Now, again, it's not a 1-for-1. It's replacing 70 points with 3 different guys.
Yeah.
I think they can do that. That I'm not worried as much about. My question, though, is can you just replace the pure goal scorer that he is? That is the one thing for me is, okay, 36 goals that you suddenly have to replace, and maybe Holloway gets up to 36 goals, but that's 10 of 36 that I just replaced there by giving him 10.
Yeah.
And to me, you need those pure goal scorers when it comes to the playoffs. And I know he was hot and cold this year in the playoffs, but that's more my question of when you go to replace him is how do you replace his goal production? The 70 points, you might be able to do it in the aggregate. Defenseman can help with that as well. 36 goals is the very tough part to try and figure out how the Blues would replace that with their forwards and with their defensemen.
Again, kind of my tinfoil with all of this, because really that's what we're doing right now. We're just speculating on what could take place. But the reason we're talking Byram, if you missed it, is because David Pagnotta of the fourth period and Darren Dreger both said that St. Louis, among other teams, are tied to Bo Byram with the Buffalo Sabres. If you acquire Byram, let's say it's for Kairu. It might be an overpay for some of you, but let's say that's what it is to get it done. If you find the centerman in the free agent market and you bring in a Bo Byram, maybe you're trading one of Leddy or Falk off of your roster to bring in another forward. You're adding the 40 points from Byram. You're adding the, let's say, 30 points from a centerman. I saw Christian Dvorak is probably headed to free agency, maybe an option who scored 33 points for Montreal this past year. And then you acquire another middle 6 forward in place of the Kairu thing. I guess that's how you can add those points back to your team, and then also relying on more from Jimmy Snuggerud. But again, I'm generally asking the question, are you 5% better? Is Byram 5% better than what Falk was in your top 4? Is the centerman that you're bringing in along with a winger, if you go out there and acquire one, 5% better than what you had with Kairu in your top 9? These are the questions that I just find so fascinating if you are going towards defensemen, because before it was an easy checklist. You find a centerman, you fix your top 9, you come back with your same defense, bada boom, you're good to go. But man, if you're moving a piece to go get a defenseman, which means you might be moving another defenseman to find another piece, there's a lot more pieces to that jigsaw puzzle than just taking one out and putting one back in.
Yeah, to your question on do they get 5% better, I would lean towards no.
That's where I lean towards no, but then I'm like, maybe. I think Byram is a top 4 defenseman.
At least that is one thing is I can see how it happens. It's not like one of those moves. I'll use this as an example of when the Cardinals offseason was Lynn, Gibson, and Sonny Gray, which was nice. Yeah. But I looked at that and went, you can tell me our pitching's better just because they can go pole to pole. And by the way, Lynn's knee didn't let him do that. I could at least picture how they could be that 5% better if you make the Byram move, you move Kairu and say that package, and you go out and you sign a winger, maybe you upgrade that third line center spot. But I don't know if it's the 5. I don't think it's 5% better. Yeah. I think it's slightly better, but I don't think it's at that 5% that Army was talking about. Now, to be fair, I do think he kind of tried to tamper some expectations at his media availability when he kind of mentioned hey, we're looking at like 6 to 10 in the West, when we had been talking about like, hey, if you go out and you get a really good third line center, maybe you're top 3 in the Central Division this year.
Yeah.
So maybe they have been trying to pull back those expectations a little bit. He also made reference of like, hey, we're not necessarily in full push mode yet, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the 12 o'clock hour. But I'm kind of with you. I don't know if they can get 5% better with that move, but I also would say this. I wonder if they've just come to the conclusion they can't get to that mark this offseason with the way this market has played out.
And that's where the Byram thing comes into play. Are you just kind of trying to walk before you run in terms of get better? I mean, I know a lot of people are bringing up the fact that he's a left-handed defenseman and you don't need those. Look, he can play the right side, but I guess the thought process here is, are you bringing back Cam Fowler after this year? Because if you're not, well, Byram can play the left side, and then Broberg, Byram are your 2 lefties moving forward, and then you hope Juracek or somebody like that can step in and be a part of it in the coming years. But again, all of this is to say, even if they make a move, they may do none of these and come back with the same roster. But for right now, the rumors are starting to swirl heading into NHL draft night for round number 1, which we will be having for you full coverage tonight starting at 6 o'clock. Myself and Chris Kerber, Graham Francis, Jordan Deacon will be along as well. So the whole crew will be back together to have you round 1 coverage right here on 101 ESPN. That coverage beginning at 6 o'clock. We will be broadcasting live from Enterprise Center. Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. You can get in on Ask Us Anything. We'll get to that in about 15 minutes. Send us whatever questions you may have. 314-399-9646. We'll answer those coming up in 15. But coming up next, Rob Serfolio was on the Redbird Report podcast yesterday with T-Bone and BK. Highly urge you to check it out. But he had a couple comments talking about Oli Marmol's impact on the minor league system. Sure sounds like a guy that the Cardinals may be wanting for the long term rather than just this year. We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Cardinals and Guardians. Pregame at 2:30. First pitch 3:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbirds make rare Cleveland visit. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Tonight, the Cardinals begin a 3-game set at Progressive Field. Sonny Gray will make his 4th start this month as he pursues win number 8 overall. Stephen Vogt's Guardians counter with Luis Ortiz. They just dropped 2 of 3 against Toronto. First pitch set for 6:10. NBA draft. Charlotte uses its 2nd-round selection on St. Louis and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Utah, meanwhile, snags former MU turned Wisconsin standout John Tonje. Our NHL coverage featuring Alex Ferrario plus Chris Kerber taking flight post Fastlane. That 19th pick, first-round style, belongs to Doug Armstrong's Blues. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I feel like if you've been listening to our show over these last couple of weeks, it's like a drinking game. Every time we say pipeline or prospects, you should take a shot because we've talked a lot about it, whether it's been the Blues going into the draft or the Cardinals with what this mindset is moving forward. But let's say it again, so get your shooters ready. The Cardinals pipeline prospects, they're the important part for the Cardinals this season. And Rob Cerfolio was brought in to grow that side of the Cardinals organization. The assistant general manager, Rob Cerfolio, who was a guest on the Redbird Report podcast yesterday, which, again, it's up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. T-Bone and BK sat down with Rob. Phenomenal conversation, an hour-long talk about the minor league system and the growth of individual players. But one of the pieces that we pulled from this was talking about how Oli has an impact on these younger players. Take a listen.
Oli and his groups daily work to push our players to get better, and how rare that actually is at times at the highest level of the major leagues, and especially with like veteran teams. We have our players and we're going to go play 162 and guys are going to get ready in whatever way they want. I think just the culture that they're creating down there of like, we are going to care about all 3 phases of hitting, pitching, base running, defense, and we're going to excel at those, and we're going to coach and train towards getting better in all of those. And that helps when you have a young team that's really hungry for that, or younger if you believe the Victor Scott.
Again, that's Rob Cerfolio on the Redbird Report podcast. Now, T-Bone, him talking about that kind of, I'll tinfoil theory once again. It sounds like Oli has a massive lead on Chaim Bloom's decision of do they keep Oli after this season or do they go out there and just find a fresh new face for the Cardinal system? For a season that was all about runway and a season that's about developing the younger players and making sure that your minor league system is ready to go once they get to the majors, isn't that what you want from your manager? I know a lot of people have problems with Oli Marmol. Everybody has their own opinion on that, and you're supposed to have that opinion on this. But to have a manager who knows the system, knows the minor league players, knows what their best assets are and where their shortcomings are, once they get to the major leagues, that's how you take advantage of that. And for a guy like Oli, that's where you're trying to have the advantage with this Cardinals organization so that when Quinn Matthews comes up, when Tink Hence comes up, when J.J. Weatherholt comes up, you know how they're going to impact the team and what you need to do to get the best out of them. That seems like what Oli is accomplishing. And if you're winning at the major league level, I know winning is a loose way of framing it right now because you're kind of in the thick of things. But if you're winning and having success at the major league level and you have an impact on the minor league system, I don't know why a team would want to look from the outside in.
Yeah, I think Oli's the guy moving forward, and I didn't even need our conversation with Rob Cerfolio to come to that conclusion from my perspective of it. But I think what you're saying, I mean, thinking about when they said, hey, we're going to go with this youth movement, there were 2 things that kind of pop into my mind. One, it is, hey, we're trying to have these guys learn on the fly at the big league level. And to be fair to Oli and his coaching staff, that typically is not what a major league staff is supposed to do. We were kind of talking about this in the office today before the show. typically that is supposed to be the job of the minor leagues. The minor leagues are supposed to get these guys groomed, ready to go for Major League Baseball, and then they get up here, and then they're ready to go. And the Cardinals, in most of baseball, I think now, has kind of lost the side of that, and they are trying to get them to develop at the big league level. But the second thing I would add to that is, dude, it is really hard to try and play young guys and also win baseball games and do that at any sport. I remember Craig Berube, after he got let go and was on our show, said, like, hey, I just don't think you can balance trying to develop guys at the NHL level while also trying to win hockey games in a meaningful way. And to Oli's credit, he's doing both of those things. He is working with the young guys, working behind the scenes, trying to get those guys better. Rob, it wasn't in that cut, but Rob also had mentioned behind the scenes the work that they do with guys like with Alec Burleson. Remember, Burleson was kind of the odd man out there for a little bit, but he was working behind the scenes, what the Major League staff is doing with him to try and get him to get to the point where he is today, where he's arguably their best hitter now that Ivan Herrera is down, and he's been on a tear for the recent 5 weeks here. So the work that Oli's doing behind the scenes with these guys, making sure that these guys are still in it, even though the playing time is very much a very difficult jigsaw puzzle for him to balance with this lineup, while also trying to balance the runway, while also trying to win. And he's got them in the play around the playoff picture. I think he's doing a hell of a job, and I think he is the guy that you can look at, whether it is in the future you have some younger pieces that come up like J.J. Weatherholt that he'll be able to really teach that guy up at the major league level, or if they get to another time in 2 or 3 years and they're back in their winning window, he can be a guy that can really push that team and try and get them into the playoffs.
Well, structurally speaking as well, you know what that infrastructure is going to be like moving forward with a Chaim Bloom at the helm, and it's absolutely, to me, guys, mandatory that you have somebody on the job who is not only accruing experience and basically learning on the job at the major league level in an Oli Marmol himself, but being able to do so to relate to the younger crop coming through the system, being mindful as well about everything, at least a little bit of everything about what is transpiring at the lower levels, and broadening it just a little bit too. I think it's really fascinating when you explore the National League Central altogether, because on one side of the coin, you basically have a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, conceivably, if you move forward with an Oli Marmol on the younger side. I still believe Craig Counsell in Chicago falls into that category as well. And then you have Cincinnati as well as Milwaukee on the other side of the coin, right? You have two members of the older guard, so to speak, in a Terry Francona, in Pat Murphy now. He's about 66 years old. So slightly differing approaches, but given what the Cardinals have and what they are prioritizing, a renewed emphasis on the farm, on development moving forward, it just makes too much sense. And that's exactly what we heard, kernels of that, from your conversation yesterday, Tanner.
We had a couple of texts coming on the Air Comfort Service text line saying it doesn't matter what kind of impact he has on the minor league system, Oli needs to go. People loved Mike Shildt, and people were very upset when the Cardinals decided to part ways with him. Isn't that what Mike Shilt's big thing was? They brought Mike Shildt up from AAA because he had success with the younger players. They brought him up and they said, we need you to get the best out of the guys that are coming up from AAA. And he did. Now, there were philosophical differences that we don't really know what the answers to of why it didn't work out with Mike Shildt here in St. Louis. But he won here, and people were excited about Mike Shildt, and then they parted ways. That seems, if I'm going from two different entities of, look, you can go out there and get a guy like a Bruce Bochy or an Alex Cora and say, this is a established winning manager, let's bring him in. But he knows nothing about the system, versus a guy that knows everything about the system and has shown the ability to win with a subpar roster. I feel like I would lean towards the guy that knows my minor league system, because that's what the front office, that's what ownership has basically said. This is the most important thing for us right now. This is how we are building a Major League Baseball team.
Yeah, I think you've got to have, all managers across baseball have got to find a way to connect with not just the veteran guys that have been in the league for a long time, which the Cardinals have a couple of those. They've got to find a way to connect with the young guys and make sure that the young guys understand what they're trying to do, why things are happening. And Oli has said this publicly before, and it holds true, I think, across the board in all sports. You're hearing Jim Montgomery saying this for the Blues. Mm-hmm. What do guys want to hear? They want to hear the honest approach, right? Why am I not playing? They don't want it sugar-coated. Okay, they don't want to hear, well, it's just one of those days. It's a lefty, No, here's why you're not playing, right? Here's why you're not in the lineup right now. Jordan Walker, why am I not in the lineup? You can't hit a slider low and away. We're going to work on it. We're going to work behind the scenes. We're going to see if we can work on this. We're going to give you another runway, and we'll see if we can figure it out. I think Oli Marmol's done a great job of both balancing, trying to get into this runway season, and even Mo said it when we had him on what was that, Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
It was either you or BK asked him the question of hey, Oli Marmol has a ton of pieces. He's like, yeah, it's kind of hard for Oli right now, right? We gave him a pretty big log jam to try and figure out this Rubik's Cube. And outside of, I'd say, Jordan Walker, most of the young guys, they're getting pretty positive returns on. Mm-hmm. And that is on the player. Credit to the player. The players are doing the work behind the scenes. It's also credit to Oli Marmol and the staff that he's brought in to try and help maximize what the Cardinals have with this roster.
Yeah. One more thing to get to, and then we'll get to Ask Us Anything on the other side. Speaking of getting the best out of your players and understanding your players, what's the trust level on the Cardinals staff figuring out what's going on with Kyle Leahy? Leahy had another rough outing yesterday. Kind of seems regular for him right now that you get the tight butt cheeks when he steps on the mound. It doesn't make any sense, in my opinion, to send him down to AAA. Yes, you'd want him to go get the ship righted there, but you've got no other options. At least Leahy gives you some competitive stuff compared to Roycroft and Munoz. These guys don't provide that for you. And with Granillo hurt, I don't really know if there's any other options for you. So, I mean, you're basically saying, look, Leahy, we need you to be right. You're going to figure it out at the major league level, right?
Yeah, I think you keep Leahy up here if you're the Cardinals and have him continue to work with Dusty Blake and the pitching staff, because it's twofold for me. One, we've seen Dusty kind of be able to right the ship with relievers when they go through some tough stretches. We saw that with Jojo Romero beginning of the year, parts of last year. We saw this with Jordan Hicks a couple years ago, where they were to kind of figure out the repertoire and what was going wrong. Mm-hmm. The second thing for me is, so Kyle Leahy, as you mentioned, been going through it, right? Last 14 and 2/3, he's given up 22 hits, 12 strikeouts, getting up a hit in 17 straight appearances. Do you know what Kyle Leahy's ERA is on the season? And again, that's not the end-all, be-all for relievers, but what do you think his ERA is so far this year?
I don't think it's inflated very much, so I'm going to say 2.7.
Pretty close, 2.82. Yeah. And you know what that tells me? That goes to show me how dominant he was early on in the year, right? And when we talked with BT last Friday, I asked him about Leahy, and he said, man, you remember his stuff. He was one of the best relievers in baseball, not just on the Cardinals, in baseball. Mm-hmm. Something's gone awry. I think they're going to be able to figure it out. You can keep him here at the major league level. And I think the most important part is he's not costing you games because they have kind of fixed everything else around the bullpen right now, right? Yeah. Jojo Romero, they've kind of figured out. Matz isn't swinging between bullpen and rotation like he was early on in the year. Riley O'Brien has taken one of those right-handed spots in the bullpen and really solidified it to where I think they can start pushing him into some higher leverage situations. And that's why I think this is a little different from when they had Fernandez, who was really good last year. Yeah. It was Fernandez was costing you games because he's being thrown into high leverage situations. And you had Matt that was kind of swinging into the rotation. You had JoJo, whose stuff just wasn't as crisp, where you didn't trust him. And then I think it was Roycroft, and they were going through that churn still in the bullpen. There was too many variables out there in the bullpen that finally you had to send down Fernandez and start experimenting with other options. I don't think they're there just yet with Kyle Leahy.
Cardinals back at it tonight against the Cleveland Guardians. He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll catch up with our former NHL goaltender, Mike McKenna. But coming up next, you send us anything you got on your mind. We're going to answer it. Ask us anything next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
Well, we got some breaking news to kick off our Ask Us Anything segment here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Also, our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. John Tavares officially re-signs with the Toronto Maple Leafs. 4-year deal, $4.4 million AAV. Everybody is reacting right now saying, what a freaking steal. That is a hell of a deal for John Tavares. That deal was not coming from anybody other than Toronto.
No.
He was going to the market. He was getting 3x7, 4x8, something like that. This was strictly I want to stay in Toronto. And Toronto said, well, we're not paying you $7+ million. And this was him wanting to stay in Toronto. But with all that being said, this is an incredible deal. Like, you just got a legit number 2 center who could give you, for the next 2 years, in my opinion, 35+ goals. You got him at $4.4 million. That gives Toronto the ability to go out there and make other moves to be competitive. But John Tavares off the board, Tebow, which means that center market is going smaller and smaller and smaller. Right now, Pius Suter and Radek Fox are probably the top 2 centermen available in the free agent market.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. Which also makes me a little worried that Radek Fox is not going to be back.
Oh, yeah. I think I've kind of convinced myself he's gone. But man, what a great day for Suter, because you're right. He is the top center on the market.
Oh, yeah.
Even a great day for Granlund, too, if a team would view him potentially as a center now. So, yeah, I mean, that's a steal for Toronto. I would worry about 4 years with him because he is 35 going into his age 35 season. But, man, at $4.38 million with the way the cap's going up, that's a great deal. And you're 100% spot on. He wasn't going to sign that on the free agent market, even though his favorite color is blue. If the Blues were going to be a team that were going to be in on him, it was going to be, like you said, probably 3x7, 3x8,
his
somewhere in that range.
His market value, according to Dom, was $8.3 million. So he was getting 3x8, 4x7 on the market no matter what. So John Tavares officially signs.
Toronto's not supposed to have nice things.
No, they're not. But you know what?
They haven't earned that.
This gives them the opportunity to get nice things. They're not bringing back Marner. They're going to probably be re-signing Matthew Nyes. They have John Tavares. I'll be interested to see. I wonder if Brad Marchand is going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf.
I was thinking him, or I wonder, because there's been some speculation that they might be in on Ekblad.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that could be their other pivot, too.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's get to some of your Ask Us Anything scenarios over on our Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, if no salary cap on the floor is implemented in baseball, do you think fan interest will decline as only a handful of teams are ever really relevant? Or because it's the big market teams, will baseball still be successful even if worse off without them?
That's a great question. I still think baseball will be fine. I don't think it can get to its peak of, as the texter said, fan interest if you continuously have 7 to 10 markets that just aren't trying on any individual season. But the reason that I say I think baseball will ultimately be fine is because as much as like we can say we hate the Dodgers, we hate the Yankees, we hate that all these East Coast and West Coast teams have all the star talent out there, people love watching it, right? The ratings are through the roof. Why? We talked about this last week. It's because ESPN is showing those teams, and the talent is the best it's probably ever been when it comes to baseball. I mean, you've got this guy named Shohei Ohtani that's hitting 30 home runs, driving in 100 RBIs, and can like pitch a sub-3 ERA.
Yeah.
Freddie Freeman's one of the best pure hitters in baseball. Mookie Betts is a beast. Aaron Judge is like a linebacker hitting 70 home runs in a year. So baseball ultimately is in a good spot. I still do believe that if you did put in a cap and a floor, that it would really drive up interest, because markets like Pittsburgh, who I feel so bad for because it's one of the best baseball teams, if not the best in the country. I'm a Pirates fan. Why the hell would I ever root for that team when I just know that they're just going to always be at the bottom of the barrel, or their best players will sign with the big markets in free agency?
I think a floor always makes things more interesting because those bottom dollars can't be awful.
Yeah, and they have to try, right?
Yeah.
To an extent. Like, I think the Sharks, for example, have the most cap space in the NHL. They got to get to the floor.
Yeah.
So they have to try and go out and make some moves. Now, maybe they're not going to be sexy, but they have to do some stuff to try and help them out in the here and now.
From the 801, guys, if Shane Van Sagi, I believe his name is, I apologize if I mispronounce this, but he's a St. Louis kid in the NHL draft tonight. If he's available at number 19, should the Blues pull the trigger with him because he's a St. Louis kid? I don't know much about this, but every mock draft that I've seen does not even have him in the first round. Some of them I've seen like towards the bottom of the first round. Stay tuned because I have a Ferrario Five in terms of some players to target. But no, I wouldn't. I think I'm looking at specific areas of need for the Blues because there's really not a best available player when you get to number 19. It's typically like there's a lot of really good players. Where are you weakest at in your system? And you can go from there. Guys, there were some Cubs reporters in town for the series, and they were talking about the attendance at Busch Stadium. Do you guys think even though the lineup is exciting, the fans don't believe in this team because of the pitching, and that's why they're not showing up?
We'll get a little bit into the attendance in the 12 o'clock hour as well. I just think there's the lack of a superstar makes it hard, especially in this market, to buy into what the Cardinals are and what their ceiling is. I've said this and I stand by this. In every sport, there are organizations that just have to operate differently because expectations are different. Yeah. And I think the Cardinals are that in baseball. It's not about the let's have some fun and let's watch a team that wins 90 games and gets to go to October and just see what they can do. It is, no, can you build a World Series contender in St. Louis, right? There are 11 banners flying out in right center field above the scoreboard. You don't just get to build a 85-win team that's got nice, young, talented pieces that I do like and is fun to watch and just say, okay, fans are coming. No, you got to build the young, exciting pieces while also putting that stud that's in the middle of that order that also has a stud that's atop of that rotation and can go out there and guide you towards what could be that 12th banner. So, no, I don't think the attendance is going up this year. And I probably should have saved some of those bullets for the 12 o'clock segment.
Way to go wasted. So we'll have to divert there.
Question.
Well, you just tease them with it a little bit there. But, yeah, what T-Bone said. A couple more of these. We got to get to Mike McKenna on the other side. Guys, do you believe that if the Blues trade Jordan Kyrou, as soon as he's gone, they're going to be looking for the next Jordan Kyrou? Yes and no, but if they're trading Kyrou, to me that tells me the Blues may believe they have the next Kyrou in-house. They have another 30-goal scorer with 70 points. I mean, guys, Dylan Holloway was basically there, if not for that injury last season. It all comes down to what you're getting in return if you're trading him. If you're not upgrading your team from trading Jordan Kyrou, then I'm not trading Jordan Kyrou. And I know that sounds like Captain Obvious statement, but that's where we're at right now. Like, there's no point in trading him unless I'm getting a top 4 pair defenseman or a top 6 forward. It's the only way I'm doing it. And the forward's kind of got to be a centerman.
Yeah, I'm with you there on if you're trading him. I just have a tough time figuring out if they are going to be able to replace that guy. But I think they might be able to do it internally because of what you said with Holloway. Also, Jimmy Snuggerud. They could just say, hey, Jimmy Snuggerud's going to just ultimately become that guy. Holloway's a guy that basically replaces the production of Kyrou, and then Snuggerud's like the second guy that is there as well. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be looking for the next Kyrou because I think they've got a couple of internal guys that they can hope that can get there.
Yeah. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we will get into that attendance conversation from the Cubs' perspective as they were taking shots at St. Louis. But is that attendance ever going to get back up this season? But coming up next, we'll talk it over with our former NHL goaltender, Mike McKenna, here on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. The goals, the glory, the game winners, it all starts here. The 2025 NHL Draft. Tune in tonight starting at 6 for 101 ESPN's NHL Draft Show live from Enterprise Center with Chris Kerber and Alex Ferrario. The future of hockey is about to be written one name at a time, and you can listen to it live on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Save by Mike McKenna. How do you like me now?
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Perfect time to check in with our hockey guru, our former NHL goaltender, courtesy of Macadoodles, Mike McKenna, who joins us every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. You have the John Tavares news out of Toronto, and Gary Bettman and company just announcing a 4-year extension on a new CBA negotiation. So 5 years, 4 with the new one, and then, of course, this upcoming season of labor peace in the National Hockey League. Mike, how are you today, buddy?
Well, I feel really good, and I feel really good. I hope everybody out there is as well, but mostly because labor peace is a really good thing when it comes to pro sports, and having been involved with CBA negotiations for a lot of my career, I sat on the exec board in the minor league union for the better part of a decade. Man, sometimes they can be really contentious, and we're at a point where the NHL is a healthy league. It's making money. The players are making money. It's not as contentious as we've seen before. I feel really good about that. I'm curious to see some of the details, something we might want to dive into a bit, even with e-bugs and other things. But it's great news for everybody in hockey and for fans of the sport that they know they're going to have continuity now for the next 5 seasons.
Yeah, going all the way up to 2030. So, Mike, let's just start there. I know you've seen kind of the bullet points out there of the 84-game schedule. You also have the adding 2 more games for the division rival. They're shortening the preseason. They're trying to fix that LTIR loophole with the playoff salary cap, essentially. And then you mentioned the e-bug. What were some of the takeaways from the nuggets in this new CBA?
Well, preseason sucks, so that's great.
Amen to that, Mike.
It's just a waste of time, man. And I'll tell you what, when you got to show up September 2nd and you're not playing meaningful games until the middle of October, that's a joke. That's just dumb. All you're doing is asking to hurt your players and turn people off. And you don't get good hockey anyway, so that's fine. Plus the chaos factor. Start the season after you've played a game or two, you don't know what's going to happen. So I'm a fan of that. The 84 game, though, that makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
I kind of thought going the other direction might make a bit more sense considering the premium on health of players, specifically from a goaltender standpoint. We've seen goalies hurt way more often than ever before, which, quick sidebar, it makes you think about Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. They're talking about extending him out there. Boy, Edmonton could sure use that guy. The problem is he's hurt all the time, So it kind of surprised me that we went to more games. LTIR, that's a good move. It doesn't make any sense for us to be able to roll out an extra $10, $20 million after playoffs. There's been way too much manipulation with that. And then the e-bug status, well, this one's interesting because in 2021 I wrote an article for Daily Faceoff saying exactly that this needed to happen, that there needed to be a full-time, basically traveling bullpen catcher, if you will. Pay the person, put a limit on the salary, don't count it against the salary cap. I got kind of mocked and laughed at for that article. I was thinking too far outside the box. Well, kind of feeling a little goalie Nostradamus here, but I have yet to see details on it, but I think it was needed because you don't want your hotshot prospect sitting on the bench riding the pine in the NHL or as a third guy. And you also don't want to have this system still where, as cool as it was, as unique as it was, it does make the game a little bit different when somebody can just come out of the stand straight out of the Brentwood League. And please, Dottie Padre, if you're listening, don't hate me on this or anybody else that's been an e-bug. But I had this conversation with Craig Anderson a couple of years ago. It really makes a lot of sense for a goalie that's winding down their career, or maybe even an ECHL goalie or college to, do a year or two as the team's e-bug and fly around and eat fillet mignon and stay at the Ritz for, whatever dollar figure. Like, that sounds awesome. Yeah. So, pretty happy about that.
Mike, pivoting away from the CBA that's just been ratified and looking at the offseason as the NHL draft is tonight and then free agency opens up on the 1st, I want to get your thoughts on what feels like might be the Blues pivoting towards looking to upgrade on their blue line. Tavares off the board, just signed a contract extension with Toronto, and all reports seem to be indicating that the Blues are more interested in looking at a defenseman. They were reportedly in on the Noah Dobson market till it sounds like he's now decided he wants to go on the East Coast. And they're also reportedly in on the Bo Byram market. What do you make of the Blues looking towards upgrading the defense on the blue line right now?
I like the concept of it because it is an area that they need to bolster. It's the same way with second-line center, third-line center, take your pick, whatever you want to call. I do find it's kind of interesting, though, to target someone like Byram. And it's been reported by, Darren Dreger said that he's in the mix with it, okay? So that's somebody you can trust with it. Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period, sometimes he's right. You just never know. So if Dreger says it, you can bet the Blues are at least kicking tires on Byram. But it's really, where does he end up slotting in? I mean, where is Cam Fowler done after this year? I think he'd be an upgrade to Nick Leddy, for sure. But even Byram is somebody who comes with, to me, question marks. Kind of small, hurt a lot. He's never reached his full potential, and that potential is like sky high. So are you going to look at Broberg and Fowler as your top two for his future, or would you mix in a Byram? I think it kind of comes down to, if you can get that player at the right price and figure it out later, it makes sense, because there are a lot of D available right now. It's been a D's glut, and the market's not terrible on them. So I don't know. I'm kind of wish-washy on it. I'm thinking about the Kyrou talk and everything that goes with it, and I'm not sure the path to Byram exists without giving up a roster player, and I'm not sure who that would be for the Blues that they'd feel comfortable with to try to improve that back end.
Well, and that's where I was going next, Mike, because the price seemingly has sounded like Kyrou. Kyrou was reportedly a part of the Buffalo trade offer that was Peterka. That's according to Frank Saravalli. You would imagine Kyrou was in the conversation with the Islanders, with Dobson. To me, I'm so confused by Kyrou might be your best trade chip, but is your team getting better if you're trading a guy that's scoring 70-plus points consistently for a defenseman who fits into your core, who is the right age bracket, who might be a top-4 defenseman, but I'm trading a sure thing for a might-be thing?
I just don't think the Blues improve, truthfully. I kind of have to attack this with a three-prong approach, my own opinion and others. And so I'll give you the first two, and then I'll go with my own. Frank Saravalli said this morning that the Blues were really not that interested in trading Kyrou. They're completely happy keeping him. But a perfect scenario, which would have been the Peterka deal, they would have considered doing that. Now, also this morning, listening to a little TMA with our buddy Joey Vitale hanging out on the show, too. Joey made some great points, man, that where are you going to get a 35, 40-goal scorer out there? They don't grow on trees. And the hard part in our city is that, man, we are fickle sometimes as St. Louisans, and we just demand excellence immediately. And I can tell you the career arc for Jordan Kyrou has been up. It continues to be up. He played his best, most responsible hockey this season. He's still finding some edge. He still has room for growth in playoffs. I don't see how making a hole on the front end with scoring helps a team to help the back end a little bit on D right now. And I know Jimmy Snuggerud is going to be a great player. I think he already is a good player. But I don't think you can wish and hope with a team that, for me, is still on the cusp of doing great things with the Blues. I think you need to have Kyrou. I think you need to have Snuggerud. And I've said this to several people. I think the Blues need Jordan Kyrou for 2 more years, until they really know what they may be looking at, whether they could truly move on from him, if it would be too much of a gamble. So unless something comes across the board that's just freakishly awesome for the Blues, I don't see Bower and Byram being that answer in a deal with Jordan Kyrou. I don't think so on my personal feelings.
And Mike, speaking of that of Kyrou potentially being a name that keeps getting floated out there, the thing that I keep coming to is all these moves feel very aggressive for what the Blues are wanting to do. The Byram, if they were in on Noah Dobson. And the sense I got from when Army talked to the media a week ago was that the Blues weren't in a mode to really be pushing. Am I misreading? Does it feel like the Blues are they're saying one thing, but trying to really push and really enter in this winning window a lot faster than I think they've been leading on?
Well, that's what I like about Doug Armstrong is that I think we've seen him play things fairly conservatively for the most part, but don't ever count this guy out to shake it up. You know, there's a killer mentality in there, and when I say a ruthless mentality, I mean that in the best way. I do not mean that as there's some people that ruthless means they'll do anything. They'd cut their arm off to do whatever. I just think he's willing to make pretty gutsy plays if he needs to. I just don't know if it's going to present itself this year. So I think you're kind of spot on here where I think under the surface, the Blues would be definitely smart to entertain some big swings right now because look at the team that just won the Stanley Cup the past couple of years, the Florida Panthers. What was the catalyst for them winning the Stanley Cup, everybody?
Aggressive as hell.
Kick a chuck.
And he's from our town. That's right.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about that anymore, Mike.
I get it. I know. I totally understand. But I think in today's world, you got to be willing to take big swings when they present it. So I don't believe the Blues are looking or actively seeking shaking things up, but I bet under the surface, they're definitely taking a look at it.
Mike, let's wrap up with this. Of course, it is beautiful outside, regardless that it's sweltering hot. It's still a perfect time to be outside. And when you're doing that, you got to have the drinks to back it up. Tell us what's going on out at Macadoodles.
Well, you know, the 4th of July is rolling around, so we got some great specials on all your canned cocktails. And, of course, we got some new and different bourbons that have come into the store, even a couple of new different vodkas. I got one that's made with Blue Weber agave, but it's a vodka. Just took down top award this year for best vodka, so that's coming in. It's called Weber. Another one that we got going here, though, is our events. On July 9th, we've got a Spanish wine tasting and pairing event that's going to be a lot of fun. And then July 10th, we've got Stolock Whiskey, which is Stone Ledge Distilling. That's a local out of Union, Missouri. They have a shop over in Defiance. We're doing a dinner with them. We bring in Sugar Fire. It's a $40 ticket. Sit down, have some pours, have a cocktail, hear all about the history of Missouri distilling and where it's heading. That's at 6:30 p.m. on July 10th. And you can find those in all of our events on our social media. Go to Macadoodles Darting Prairie at Instagram. Go to it at Facebook. Find it. Sign up. Make sure you're getting those. So we're really looking forward to our events. Looking forward to a safe and happy 4th here and being ready for it and getting everybody in the pool. Enjoying those canned cocktails.
Absolutely. Get everybody in the pool as fast as possible. Mike, always appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the NHL draft weekend. And we'll hopefully talking Blues moves with you next Friday.
Yeah, I hope so, too. So, all right, you guys enjoy yourself. Thanks for always. Everybody out there, be safe. Enjoy the weather.
There you go. Mike McKenna, former NHL goaltender, on behalf of Macadoodles, always every Friday here on 101 ESPN. Real quick, just to kind of continue the conversation of what he's talking about with Kyrou, IROC brought this up on our graveyard chat over on YouTube. Josh Norris and Bo Byram. Josh Norris, centerman that was traded from Ottawa last year to Buffalo for Dylan Cousins. Now, I have no idea why Buffalo would trade away a centerman for a winger. That doesn't make much sense, but that could be if they decide, like, these are the shakeups that Mike was just talking about. That's an aggressive move that would make more sense. I just don't believe that they were in on Peterka just for Kyrou. I feel like there had to be more with it, and they were going forward for a Byram. What if they're trying to go for another forward in Byram with Kyrou?
Yeah, maybe that's the route they're going because
Norris, by the way, scored 35 goals. Now, this was 4 years ago, but scored 35 goals and 55 points as a centerman for the Ottawa Senators. Now, he has been injured
he's had trouble staying healthy.
So that's the bigger issue. But
and like to
26.
What Mike was saying, and that's what makes it so tough on the read of Doug Armstrong is Kyrou's name's not just being floated out there for a Bo Byron, right? That has to be a package of something else is in it. And that's what kind of makes it entertaining about kind of covering Doug Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues.
Absolutely.
typically you don't see the big move that's coming because it's, like he said, it's not something that you would expect a lot of teams to take a swing on. What I just find interesting is it feels like they are operating and really trying to push, yet the sense I continue to get from is they feel like they're still probably 2 years away from really being in that window, and that's what I think it makes this offseason interesting, and I wonder if it's because the center market didn't develop like they thought, to where they say, okay, well, how do we get that 5% better? Well, we have to pivot and be more aggressive and when I say aggressive, looking to really upgrade that blue line.
Yeah, it's a fascinating proposal by IROC, so I appreciate you putting that out there. And I mean, look, that would be a shakeup. You're getting a 26-year-old centerman who's under contract for the next 5 years. You're getting Byram, who I would imagine you're doing a contract extension with. You're getting a centerman and a defenseman for a winger, where you have a plethora of. So again, what's crazy about this too is all of these could be out there, and it doesn't mean if it doesn't happen that they squashed that. Like, that could be what the proposal is. And if Buffalo doesn't want to take it, Buffalo doesn't want to take it. It's how O'Reilly thing happened. Blues had their proposal. Buffalo said no. And then they came back to the table after the draft and said, yeah, let's do it. And then the deal went down. So also Elliot Friedman just reporting that Dobson is willing to sign long-term extensions with the Canadians and the Blue Jackets.
No.
And the Blue Jackets. The Battle of the Blues wins once again on Columbus's side. Unbelievable.
I hate those guys.
Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get back into the Blues in 15 minutes. If what T-Bone was just talking about, if they're trying to push that winning window faster than what they're trying to lead on. And I've got your Ferrario Five for tonight's number 19th overall pick. But next, the Cardinals' attendance was down against the Cubs. It's just not coming back this year. We'll discuss next on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Anytime the Cubs are talking about the Cardinals in a negative tone, that's when it just riles up Cardinals Nation. Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. And that's what took place yesterday. Over the week, of course, Cubs and Cardinals in the series. And this was from Hall of Fame Cubs radio play-by-play man Pat Hughes. We couldn't find the audio anywhere with this one, so this is just the quote that we could find. So strange to see so many empty seats here in this big ballpark. You're accustomed to 40 to 45,000 fans every game, and I mean every game for the last, I've been here 30 years. I don't remember crowds this small ever in the 30 years. Last year, an average announced crowd of 41,483 saw the 6 Cardinals-Cubs games played at Busch Stadium. And, of course, this series, Monday through Thursday, 29,949 fans. The average this week makes it the sparest average gathering for a Cardinals-Cubs series since May 8th through 10th, 1995.
That is pre-T-Bone.
And the 90s before McGuire and Sosa was not fun.
Don't go there.
I was 5, but I know it wasn't fun.
Who's your favorite player? BJ, Ray Lankford in the day?
Ray Lankford probably would have to be it because there wasn't a whole lot more beyond that. Tino Martinez. Probably up there. I think he was past 95, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I think
loved St. Louis. Loved it.
No, he did not. He did not love St. Louis. So it brings to the conversation something that we touched on a little bit in Ask Us Anything. If they're not coming back for that series, and look, it was sweltering outside. Nobody wanted to be out there. I was surprised at the 29,000 that wanted to be out there in that heat. It was the middle of the week, and it was very hot out. But if they're not coming for Cards-Cubs in a series that might be defining for this season, I don't know if they're coming back, T-Bone. And I don't know why, because I could come up with 5 or 6 different theories of. I don't think they like John Mozeliak until that regime is gone. I think they want to see if the team is any good, and they've just been kind of 500 along for the last couple of months. I don't know if it's they want to see the team invest and go out there and get a star. But whatever the case may be, if they're not coming back in that Cubs series, it's hard to fathom that they'll be back at all unless you're in the postseason.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I thought maybe because they've been playing good baseball that you might start to see the attendance start to have a bit of an uptick. And yes, I understand it was hot outside, but typically Cardinals-Cubs, weather doesn't typically slow down the best fans in baseball from getting out there for Cardinals-Cubs, at least not to that extent. I think this was the first time that I've kind of just finally just come to the conclusion of, you know what, it's just they're not going to have the attendance this year. And I think it is just solely because I think there's still uncertainty as to what the Cardinals' actual plan is at the trade deadline. They aren't going to come out publicly and say if they're going to be buyers, if they're going to trade from Ryan Helsley. And if you trade Ryan Helsley, though a decent chunk of the fan base would probably applaud that move, I think it also would be a sign of, okay, so we really don't want to be in the playoffs this year as well. And I think it is the lack of a superstar on this team. I looked this up last night because, All-Star voting has moved to phase 2, where essentially each position is down to the final 2 players you vote for, except for in the outfield where it's down to 6, and 3 of the 6 will get into the All-Star game as starters. Not one single Cardinals player, not even Brendan Donovan, who is a deserving All-Star, is amongst the finalists. And it seems to be the Cardinals are trending towards having just one All-Star selection this year would be my guess, because players will then vote these guys in. I'm assuming it's just going to be Brendan Donovan, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
If that is the case, it would be the first time in franchise history they've had 3 straight years with just one All-Star selection. So I think that goes to show you the lack of the star for why you're not seeing fans here. And look, I'm not blaming you for not going out in that 100-degree heat, because that sucks. But I think this was the first time that I've finally come to the conclusion of, hey, if they're not coming for Cubs-Cardinals, when both teams are above 500, they're just not going to come out for this team this year.
Yeah, I mean, if that was Cards-Cubs on the weekend, I think I would have a lot more of a, determined, it was the middle of the week, and I understand it's summer, but, I mean, look, hot middle of the week after working.
But, I mean, this is since 1995 that we're talking about, right? This isn't since, 2018 that we're talking about this low of an attendance number.
Oh, yeah.
I would still expect it to be in the 30 to 35,000 range, and they didn't even average 30,000 for this series against the Chicago Cubs.
You're not wrong, and I mean, look, moving forward with that, If you're not doing it for that, the only way you're doing more and bringing people back to the ballpark is a playoff series. It's the only way. But here's the issue with that. I think, at least in my opinion, that still falls on what the ownership and front office decides to do beyond this season. Because maybe you pull them back in. Like somebody just texted in and said, look, this team's actually fun to watch, but it's readily available at television. There's not a lot of disposable income, and you just don't trust kind of what the future is for the team. If you pull people back in by a playoff series, let's say you get in the wild card, you win a wild card game, and you go in and you play in the NLDS. That might pull people in for the time being. But then you go to the offseason, and if you don't do anything, I don't know if that brings people back consistently. I think it really does fall on at what point does ownership take that move and say, look, we're ready to go back. I don't even know if they've ever have been. We're ready to get into the uncharted waters with this. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, and extending your previous point, Tanner, not Brendan Donovan, not even really any number of individuals are remotely close on this team to being those would-be nominees for the Midsummer Classic. And I was thinking about this near the tail end of Ask Us Anything as well, at the tail end of the 11 o'clock hour. And the fact of the matter is that when we talk about the lack of a superstar at present, what is going to be the ultimate direction for this organization? Do you land one via a trade? Do you draft and develop? Even last season, when you're talking about attendance figures and you're talking about individuals who can maybe fill out that profile of being a marquee attraction, and this is not an indictment against a Mason Wynn, even an Alec Burleson, guys who have very specific skill sets who are exciting and fun to watch. Victor Scott II. They have the magnetism, they have the charisma, but they don't have the can't-miss numbers and performance body of work over an extended period of time to mandate that you come out to Busch Stadium with regularity. That's where you're missing the superstar. And again, complementary pieces, guys who could ultimately morph into big-time pieces of your program. That's great, but you don't have the can't-miss attraction, the likes of which defined this organization throughout the early 2000s.
I think this text from the 636, and this is kind of the little rant I went on during Ask Us Anything.
Yeah.
From the 636, this team has such a low ceiling. It's average baseball. Maybe they come back or Libby has a good start. It's as likely, though, Gorman strikes out in a big spot and Fetty gives up 8 runs. First off, not fair, Fetty on the Fetty part there. It's a blip on the radar. But
sure.
I
Remember
think
the Red Sox game?
Yeah. I think what the 636 is saying there is the big thing there, which is it's a slightly above average team, in my opinion. Right? We all agree. They get to October. Look, it'll be fun. October baseball, I don't care if you get in with 83 wins like the Diamondbacks are 2023, or you're the last wild card with like 92, which it might take today. Mm-hmm. Cardinals baseball is just one of those organizations where it is viewed differently, where you just can't have, and even Mo has said this, and they're not in this, but Mo said, like, you can't rebuild in St. Louis. I also think, to extend that comment for Mo, I don't think you can just be mediocre in St. Louis.
Well, yeah.
You've got to build a team that people can look at and say, feel like they have a shot once they get to October.
Yeah, you need to build a team that in preseason you look at and you say they're a World Series contender. I think that's the one way you do it. And here's the trickle-down effect with that. We can act like ownership. We said yesterday that ownership is going to have to go to invest at some point into playing in those crazy waters of free agency or making a trade. How does that impact them if people don't come? Like, it's the vicious cycle of they're not going to come. Somebody just texted it and said, I'm not investing money if they're not investing in the team. Totally understand that. But then that's where the ownership says, well, why are we investing in the team if people aren't coming? Like, this is the vicious cycle. At some point, somebody has to pull and play chicken.
Exactly. And at some point, and that's why I find if this is what the attendance continues to be, because I thought, and they made it public, that's why I was critical on some of their early season decision-making, where they said, hey, like, we think if we can win in April, then maybe we might be able to get people back in. And they didn't win in April. They won in May, and people still aren't coming back. You know, I thought maybe they could eventually get themselves into that 37, 38, maybe get up towards 40, like if you're really good for an extended stretch. And I don't think they're going to get there. And I think what makes this so fascinating is, to your point on, like, somebody's going to have to give. And I'll tell you what, the answer's not the fans.
No.
The fans aren't the ones who are going to give.
Not at all.
It's going to come from ownership, right? It's going to come from, you know what? We made the mistake. It is time to do the quote-unquote deficit spending. What has carried our payroll so much? It's been our attendance. Well, our attendance isn't there. Why? Because we don't have the star, right? We don't have the dog that's going to lead you out there for 162 games that people want to go see. And that's what will make the offseason so fascinating is if these attendance numbers continue this way and their TV package continues to be in what is a questionable spot at best, man, I don't know what they're going to do, because you can just create that vicious cycle of, well, we're not spending money, well, then we don't win ball games, then we're not getting attendance, and then it just continues to swirl and swirl and swirl, and that's exactly what has happened. They're not the same thing, but that's what's happened in Pittsburgh. They never spent like the Cardinals, but even to what their maximum spending was, they finally said, well, okay, well, we got to cut back because we're not winning. And then they got worse and worse, and the attendance went down and down to where they're even talking about trading a guy that's making $15 million. Why? Oh, well, we don't have that kind of money for a player. So that's where that can really snowball on organizations, not just at the small levels like Pittsburgh, but even here in St. Louis.
Yeah, and if you put that low ceiling text under the microscope, I think it's more than valid, because we're not talking about a pure lack of results downtown. No, rather entering today's action, guys, as you move into the waning stages of June, you're talking about a team that has, in all likelihood, I think most of us would contend, maximized its ability collectively right now with what you have on the roster. Third most wins in the National League, tied for third. Only the Dodgers and the Mets flat out have more wins at home. So the quality, the brand of baseball, particularly at Busch Stadium, has been sterling, and yet people aren't still talking with their wallets, and we understand why.
I'll add this real quick.
Yep.
I'm seeing some people say, well, it's because it's the manager, right? I don't think it's anything to do with...
I don't think it's the manager.
The manager.
I think it's the president of baseball operations.
I think there's a fair amount of critique that should belong on Mo in this. I think the number one critique belongs on ownership.
Oh, I agree with that. I think the fans' criticism, though, is not Oli. I think it's more Mo.
Yeah, and again...
The large sum, I should say, not all of them.
That one is fair, but if you just, let's just... Because I've seen a couple of people throw out different names like Skip or Yachty as the manager. If the Cardinals just did that, right, coming into this year, let's say. They said, you know what, after another year where we missed the playoffs, we've moved on from Oli Marmol and we've hired Skip Schumacher, and this was the roster that he had. One, I think he'd be getting close to the same results, if not maybe a little bit worse. But second, I don't think your fans are suddenly showing up because it's Skip Schumacher, right? And we had this conversation about, is Jim Montgomery the face of the Blues? And we've talked about how St. Louis is kind of unique in that situation of managers of the past have become faces of the organization. Skip or Yachty or Albert is the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. You know why I still don't think people are there? Because they're still not winning at a high level. There's still a team that you don't believe is a World Series contender. So, no, I do not think it's about the manager. I think about the product itself that is on the field and the lack of a superstar.
He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll take a break. We'll get to the junk drawer in 15, but coming up next, are the Blues trying to push towards their winning window faster? And I've got your 5 targets for the Blues tonight at number 19, next on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance team studio cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN studio cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbirds hope the bats come alive in Ohio. Good afternoon. It's Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Having suffered back-to-back shutouts against Chicago, St. Louis now searches for offensive punch at Progressive Field. Tonight's series opener versus Cleveland begins at 6:10 p.m. Sonny Gray will start and be opposed by Luis Ortiz. Toronto blanked Stephen Vogt's Guardians yesterday, 6-0. Soccer, City SC also traveling away from Energizer Park. 5-win Houston will host David Critchley's club tomorrow. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Well, just when you think he's disappeared for a while, Kevin Weeks just comes out and drops the... Kevin Weeks moments ago just tweeting out, I'm told the Islanders are trading Noah Dobson to Montreal Canadiens. Have no idea what the return is. This is what we were talking about earlier today. It sounded like he was only going to sign an extension with an Eastern Conference team. It was down to Montreal or Columbus. So Noah Dobson off the board going to Montreal, which we'll give what the return was. I'm very curious of what the return is going to be for something like this, where the Islanders knew they weren't going to be able to keep him, what Montreal had to give up. But the Blues tied to Noah Dobson yesterday. Today they're tied to Bo Byram. It seems like they're pivoting in a direction, but it also seems like, T-Bone, that they're trying to be aggressive. Whether it's with the 19th overall pick, with Jordan Kyrou, with somebody else in their system that we're not discussing, they're trying to be aggressive to make this team 5 to 10% better. Doug Armstrong spoke with the media on Monday and said that, look, the hope is that we can be closer to 6 versus 10 in terms of the Western Conference standings for this upcoming season, but you expedited the retool because of Broberg and Holloway. Now, they did downplay it a little bit, saying, like, look, we still feel like we're in the retool. It's just we've made it go a little faster. But do you feel like they're pushing towards opening this window faster because of the reports of their aggressiveness this offseason?
I think they are downplaying it. I think the way Mike described it is probably best, which is, hey, look, they probably are okay with kind of, I'll say settling, quote unquote, as, hey, okay, maybe we go out and we find like a stopgap third line center, and then we run it back with a blue line, and maybe we're not the 5% better that we were expecting, but we solidified a hole of ours, and we've bumped Sundqvist down in our lineup, and we feel like the core is going to be able to put together a full season rather than just a second half surge and can be a playoff contender. But I think they ultimately want to just start this winning window and start it rather soon. And I think that's by some of the aggressive, at least reporting. The tough part is, like, I know the Blues don't leak anything.
Yeah, so this is more so from others.
I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, are they really involved? Or are they being used as leverage in these talks?
Which is possible, but I agree with what Mike McKenna told us, that, look, if Darren Dreger's reporting it, then I believe it a lot more than Saravalli or Pena. And it's no disrespect to them, but I know that if Dreger's putting it out there, he has been told this is legit. And
a quick update on Noah Dobson. Dobson's is traded to the Canadiens and signing an 8 by $9.5 million contract extension with the Montreal Canadiens.
They got him under 10, which is impressive.
And he had been reportedly wanting 10 to 11 mil. So
my guess of what's going the other way in this one is first round pick, and probably one of their and probably one of their top players. It's going to be the 16th overall pick and probably one of their top prospects. Maybe that right-handed shot defenseman that they took a couple of years ago, David Reinbacher. But go on with what you were saying.
But what I find interesting about them wanting to be more aggressive is they're not afraid to take the big swings, as Mike had said. And I think if they're making that big a swing, like if they did go out and do this move for Dobson, and we'll see what the return is, to me, you're not just doing that of like, hey, we're kind of incrementally getting better. No, to me, that is, hey, we are pushing and we are ready to enter into the next phase of winning hockey for the St. Louis Blues. It's not the Holloway and Broberg signings where it's offer sheets and say, we want to get these guys opportunities because we think they're going to be really good players. To me, that kind of a move where you're trading a first-round pick, potentially Kyra, who is a guy that we've talked about as being in the rumor mill of if they were going to make these kind of a moves, those are significant swings of saying it is time for the St. Louis Blues to push. The new era of winning hockey is here, and it is now starting. This is year number 1. Maybe you're not into that cup window, right, where you are just significantly all in. But you are in that window of saying, hey, we believe we are a playoff team. It is not the conversation of the 6 to 10 range in the Western Conference. It is, no, we are in that 1 to 8 in a team that should be making noise once we get to the playoffs.
You know, we've made a lot of comps in terms of where the team's at in the past. I kind of wonder if the Blues' mindset right now, and it's a different scenario because they did a signing versus a trade. I kind of wonder if the Blues feel like they're closer to what they were in the 2013-2014 season. That season, I believe the Blues made the playoffs for the second time since Ken Hitchcock took over. Maybe the third time since Ken Hitchcock took over. But that offseason, they went out there and they signed Paul Stastny. And they said, we need a centerman. Let's go out and let's make the move. I don't know who that is. I don't think it's via free agent or via free agency. I think it's via trade. And again, I don't know who that is. If they're connected to these guys, it tells me that they're trying to find another piece to this core. I don't know if that means they're trying to be aggressive to make the winning window happen faster. More so, I think it's they're trying to make the winning window when it happens, you never leave it. And you know how you do that? You find more core pieces. Like, I know McKenna brought up Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers. That got them to the winning window faster because Tkachuk was in that age frame as Reinhart and Barkov, and he was a proven player. Kind of feels like the Blues may be looking at that, but it's on the defensive side to say, hey, our defense is locked up. We're good. We'll figure the forward side out as we move along with the draft picks, with the prospects. But for right now, our defense is set for the next however many years. If we can find another guy to be with Broberg, have Parayko, Broberg, and X player's name, that's your top 3, and then you develop with some of those guys internally. Now, the internal development, of course, is the biggest thing that people talk about. Typically, it takes you about 3 or 4 years for those players to impact. I still believe that they might be trading tonight's pick, but if they don't, I've got your 5 names to keep an eye on, T-Bone. You know what that means?
It's a T-Bone 10?
No, it's not. Ferrario 5. Bradford, hit that open.
You're listening to BK and Ferrario. It's time for the Ferrario 5, a top 5 list of very random things. So, Ferrario, give us your top 5.
All right, I'll go through this somewhat faster because, 1, a lot of these names people probably don't know about, and 2, we got to get to the juncture on the other side. I have one honorable mention, so Ferrario 6 here. Goaltender Joshua Ravensburg. The reason he's an honorable mention is because Doug Armstrong has never drafted a goaltender in the first round. So
you're thinking the final year of Army, he's going out of the bank?
I don't believe it will happen, but this guy they're saying is he's got superstar ability as a goaltender. Now, goaltenders develop a lot slower than others, and if you look at their pipeline, it's Colton Ellis, and that's it. So my tinfoil is if the guys that I have are gone at this point, they may go goaltender here. And look, goaltenders are always great trade commodities for people, so maybe it's something you just keep in your back pocket. Number 5 on this list, his name is Malcolm Spence. Now, the reason he's number 5 on this list is because he's a winger, and we heard Doug Armstrong talk about this Monday, saying, like, look, it still remains true. You develop down the middle. Goaltender, defenseman, centerman. But this is a winger that's 6'1", 200 pounds, and just put up 70 points in an OHL team season. He's a bigger guy, power forward. I think those are always intriguing when you get to this point, and he's kind of been around that 18 to 22 range. So I think there could be a winger option for the Blues if they get to that point.
And real quick, if they do go winger, it could be also, and we'll see, but if they start trading from their depth of wingers, you're going to need that backfilling process to occur at some point.
Absolutely. Ding, ding, ding on that one. So, number 4 on this list, defenseman Cameron Reed. He's 18 years old. He's a left shot, which if you look at the Blues pipeline, that's all they have. Left shot defenseman and like 2 righties. But he's viewed as one of the more offensive-minded defensemen in this draft. 6 foot, 200 pounds. Last year, 14 goals and 54 points for his OHL team. I don't think he's going to be there at 19. I think he's going going to go a couple of picks before you, but you're adding more. So you're adding more pieces to an area that you're already strong in. But to T-Bone's point, you add that because then you could trade from it if you feel like it's necessary and kind of replenish that system if you go that route. Number 3 on this list, his name is Blake Fiddler. Now, for hockey fans out there, yes, he is the son of Verdun Fiddler. I don't know if anybody remembers that name, but
never heard of him.
This is a right shot defenseman. This might be a little bit more of a reach for the Blues, but as I mentioned, you don't have right shot defensemen in your system with the exception of Juracek. And this guy is 6'4", 200 pounds. He's physical. He's got some offensive style to his game. He had 10 goals in 64 games this past year in the WHL. But I always think that when you're in the middle of the draft, an area that you really don't have a lot of in your system, you want to go best available player, but a lot of these guys are in the same category. Feels like you fill the void that is necessary for you, which Blake Fiddler might be that guy. All right, number 2 on this list. This is the guy that I think out of all the mock drafts that I've seen over the last week, he's the one that sounds like the Blues are going to go with him, and it's a centerman. His name is Cole Reshney. He is small. He's 5'11", 183 pounds. This past year, he put up 92 points in the WHL. He's had 26 goals. The thing about this guy and why everybody is connecting him to the Blues is he's fast, he can make plays, and he's relentless on the puck. Think Jaden Schwartz, but as a centerman. Again, I don't know if he's going to get to you at 19. He might go a little bit before you, but this is the guy I think that I've seen a lot of people, and this would be probably my hands-on favorite for the Blues to select if he's there, because they love centermen. And you need centermen, obviously, right now, and the more the merrier in the system for the Blues. But he's not number 1, T-Bone, because a right-handed defenseman is number 1.
Let's say, a Schwartz center-esque guy sounds pretty intriguing.
He does sound very intriguing, and I tell you, I will celebrate if they get that guy because I think he's going to go probably a couple of picks before. If they get him, great. Maybe you trade up to get him, depending on what assets you have. But Logan Hensler, to me, is the odds-on favorite for the Blues to select at 19. He's right around that area. He's a right-shot defenseman. He's 6'2", 192 pounds, played at Wisconsin this past year, and they say this guy's top 4 potential. He's probably a second pair at best, but he's physical, can move the puck really well, and doesn't allow much in front of the net. This seems to be the obvious choice for the Blues if they get to that point.
I like it. I like the idea of going after that right shot defenseman, especially because you need more of those. And, no, this isn't a shot towards Adam Juracek. He also has some significant question marks with his health. Army said it, can't be on the ice if you're in the tub. So it is something that is worth keeping an eye on if they do decide to go with the right shot defenseman with that 19th overall pick.
Yep, and so those are the guys. Got a couple of defensemen on there. Cole Reshney and Logan Hensler, though. Those are the 2 names that I'd keep a close eye on. How about this from Elliot Friedman? Blues have been aggressive. Jordan Kyrou's name is out there. I'm curious if they extend Cam Fowler. I'm just going to say it now. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in the next 6 days, and it is so infuriating, but also so exciting. The junk drawer is next.
It's Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Tigers and Twins. Pregame at 5. First pitch at 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
So before we do my quick junk drawer story, we do have a return on Noah Dobson. Montreal has traded Emil Heineman, who is a young bottom six forward. He's a winger, scored 10 goals last year. It was first full season with Montreal. But young forward, probably Tebow made the good reference, probably like an Alexei Toropchenko style player. And they traded their 16th and 17th overall pick in this year's draft. In my opinion, Montreal got the better side of this deal. Now, the Islanders are probably going to flip 16 and 17 and something else to move up higher in the draft. So it's more weaponry for them. But I think Montreal got away with a pretty good steal here, regardless of how you feel about Noah Dobson.
Yeah, and seeing how this package has played out, two things. One, it sounded like Dobson wasn't going to sign a contract extension if he came to the Blues because he wanted to be on the East Coast. And two, I don't know if you really had the package to go out and make this happen because, like, the Islanders, if you traded, like, you made reference to, like, I said they don't have two picks. So let's say you did 19 and Kyrou as an equivalent of a first-round pick.
Yeah.
They weren't going to flip Kyrou and another first-round pick to move up in the draft. So I don't know if you really had what the Islanders were really looking for.
And Noah Dobson is from the Montreal area, so that's probably why he went 9.5 versus 10 or 11 elsewhere.
That.
So kind of some reasoning behind all of this. Boys, my junk drawer story today, I've had a rough couple of days.
Yeah?
If you've seen me move my hands around at all, I have this Band-Aid, or bandage, I should say, on my finger.
What's up, buddy?
Bradford's concerned about you.
So I got mice.
Oh.
Now, a lot of you might be listening and be like, the neat freak who changes his sheets every 4 days has mice. First of all, mice don't mean you're a filthy person. Mice just mean they found a way into your home. But we woke up last week and just started to see droppings. And we're like, what is going on here? And now I went into my basement a couple of nights ago, and they were everywhere. And so my basement is now, everything has moved to the middle of our house. And I've had to vacuum. Like, I've got traps and boxes. I've got everything you can imagine to find a way to get these mice. And you know what these little suckers are doing? This morning I woke up, went down and kind of look and see, like, hey, what's going on? Do we find anything? Like, is there still a lot of droppings? They pushed the glue boards and the bait boxes away.
They're crafty, man.
Like, I think this one walked by and said,
it's like I'm falling for that again.
I'm not falling for this. I've seen the cartoons. And he pushed it aside and found its way in my house. So I'm dealing with that on top of the Band-Aid last night. I didn't realize, so I'm doing our laundry and I'm throwing stuff in the washing machine. My hand got caught on the back part of the lid of the laundry machine. Apparently, it's like a knife that I didn't realize it was that sharp. I grabbed it and I'm like, what was that? And it's just like Quentin Tarantino film, blood gushing everywhere. So last night, I'm by myself because my wife is working, my 3 kids trying to deal with dinner and bath and bed on top of trying to deal with this mouse problem, and I'm gushing blood with one of my fingers basically cut off. So,
Tanner, are you a Tarantino guy, by the way?
Not a Tarantino movie guy. I know the reference, though. Like, I know those are just, I know those are violent.
Bloody, but, man, it was a brutal 24 hours, so... Hopefully, I'll keep people updated, but hopefully I find this mouse, or mice, I should say.
You guys are really going through it over there at the Ferrario home.
Dude, and I think I found their entry point, and so I closed it off. I've got glue boards and bait boxes everywhere, but, like, now I've told my wife, hey, just so you know, if you hear something, it's because we caught one, or you might find one just laying around in the house somewhere. And she's like, well, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm like, well, it's either you do something with it or our 4-year-old's going to find it and do something with it.
I just hope, oh, man.
I thought when I saw your finger today, because I saw it immediately when I walked in. Well, no, I wasn't thinking the mouse got you. I thought, because I remember you said you were going to smoke something for dinner. I thought you did I don't remember when it was, last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, the brisket.
Where you really cut your hand when you're doing. I thought you did that again. I was like, dude, do you need to, like, have someone come over and help you when you're cutting meat?
It was gushing the amount of blood the same, but luckily I was like, okay, well, this doesn't look deep enough for stitches. It might be. For all I know, I might lose my finger, but I'm like, this doesn't look deep enough for stitches, so I'll just Band-Aid it up and see what happens.
Alex, as long as this doesn't reach the magnitude of that 1997 classic Mouse Hunt with Nathan Lane. Yeah, almost Home Alone style.
Well, let me tell you,
slapstick galore. Kids may like that one.
Let me tell you, I looked like that in my basement, so we'll find out if we find it, and I'll keep everyone updated because it's going to be a wild weekend. Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We're going to kind of throw an audible in here because now Elliot Friedman's throwing a little something out there about Jordan Kyrou and an extension for Cam Fowler. We'll do that, but I also want to talk Cardinals as well. We've got Brad Thompson coming up at 1:15. What do you make of the Cardinals at the halfway point in 2025? All of that next year on 101 ESPN.
I don't think we're dealing with an ordinary mouse.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. Hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We've got Brad Thompson coming up with us in about 10 minutes or so. We'll get back into the Cardinals conversation momentarily, but did just want to kind of react to the Elliot Friedman report that I had at the end of our previous segment. Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast said, look, the Blues have been very aggressive out there. Kyrou's name is out there, and also just said, I'm curious if they extend Cam Fowler. The Cam Fowler thing, T-Bone pulled up the audio, literally sounded like it was just a side thought. Do they extend Cam Fowler? We heard Doug Armstrong talk about how that's not a priority for them this offseason, nor is the Broberger Holloway. Could be GM speak. We know the Kyrou thing is out there, and now you've got another reliable source that's putting that out there that's saying, look, Kyrou's name has been floated in trades, which tells you leading up to July 1st, they're going to see what they have, exhaust all options. But just to hone in on the one, T-Bone, him saying that the Blues have been aggressive, and Friedman is tied in like anybody in the National Hockey League. If the Blues have been aggressive, it validates the point we've been discussing for this entire week. The Blues are trying to do something. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if it comes to fruition. But they realize that now is kind of a turning point for the team. They've got Jim Montgomery. How aggressive can they get to improve this team for this upcoming season and beyond?
Yeah, and because Kyrou's name is out there, and BK's talked about this, when you get to his no trade, which kicks in on July 1st, you lose, and you correct me if you think I'm overstating this, you lose arguably your best trade chip.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a guy that's a proven goal scorer at the NHL level. That's potentially 35 to 40 goals, 70 to 80 points, I think, is in his range of outcomes every single year, right it in pen. And you get him on a contract that's going to age like fine wine with the cap exploding upwards. He's your best trade chip. Now, Snuggerud is a very good trade chip as well, but you're not going to move him. This is why the Blues are floating him out there in these trade talks. And to your point of, like, it's hard to pinpoint what they're looking for. It feels like the target is blue line, upgrading at the blue line, since they were apparently in on Dobson before the trade to Montreal. They're in on Bo Byram. It's clear whatever they're doing must be some kind of package for a blue line guy that helps the blue line. And probably, as you just said at the commercial break when we were talking, probably also looking for a centerman as well. They've got to be looking for two things, especially if they're floating Kyrou's name out there. And with July 1st coming up, like, that's why they are in all these conversations, or at least floating out there. We don't know how truly aggressive they are.
You're checking in.
They're checking in and willing to say, hey, we've got this trade chip that July 1st doesn't become as valuable, so we might as well just explore what we could get for him.
Yeah.
Maybe we do, maybe we don't pull off a move, but we've at least got to explore it.
The way this works with the insiders and when guys' names get floated out there is because the insiders are tied in with agents or general managers, and a general manager will call and tell one of these insiders, hey, this team's floating Jordan Kyrou's name around it. That doesn't mean they're actively trying to trade him. That just means, hey, they brought his name up, or saying like, hey, talk to me and we'll hear from here. That doesn't mean that the player is actively involved. One last thing, if you don't believe the leverage for the Blues is gone on July 1st, look at what the return was for Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson said, I'm only re-signing with an Eastern Conference team, and I want to get paid a certain amount of money. They had very few options to go with, and Dobson got traded for 2 draft picks in this year's draft, 16 and 17, which are fine, but they're not great. And then you got a player who's a 3rd or a 4th line player. For a guy that's supposed to be considered a top pair defenseman, but he's an RFA, you don't have any leverage. That's how this thing works.
And to that point, like I'm a little surprised Montreal was willing to give them both of those first-round picks because they had all the leverage, right? And like that trade makes sense for the Islanders. Why? Because you said it. They want to move up in the draft, and now they've got plenty of ammo to go out there and try and get into the top 5 to 7.
I wonder if Montreal panicked a little bit because Columbus was another place he was willing to sign, and Columbus has a higher draft pick that they can use and has better pieces in their prospect pool that they could have flipped out there. But just kind of a tinfoil theory with that one. Okay, real quick before we get to BT on the other side, T-Bone, you brought this one up a little bit ago in the office. What do you make of the Cardinals at this halfway point of the season? I don't mean to undersell this one in terms of timing, but look, you're a little over halfway through the season. Or no, you're exactly at halfway of the season in 82 games played, or 82 games played, 81 games played. I don't know. I'm all over the place.
They played 82, they're 1 game over.
Okay, 1 game over. Thank you. Math is not my strong suit right now. You're 6 games above 500. You're 4.5 out of the NL Central. You're right there in the wild card race. Me personally, T-Bone, this is above expectations for me on this season. I thought by the halfway point we would be having confident conversations that this team is a seller. And right now it feels like, look, regardless if I feel like you left something on the table against the Cubs, you are still in this race, and you did prove that you can beat the Chicago Cubs if need be.
Yeah, I think the first half of the season has been a pretty big success for the St. Louis Cardinals because as of right now, things are trending towards them getting positive answers on a lot of the pieces that they wanted to find out about in this youth movement. Alec Burleson continues to hit, and it's clear that he seems to be an everyday player. Von Herrera's bat is a legitimate bat that could be in the middle of your batting order. Victor Scott's playing Gold Glove level defense. He's a threat when he gets on base. It's surprising he's got a really high on-base percentage. Even though the average isn't there, he's going to continue to grow. I'd say the only young guy they haven't gotten a positive return on is Jordan Walker, and he's had kind of an injury riddled season. Now, that's not to explain his lack of production. He's got to be better. But I think this has been a major success because they're getting positive answers from an individual basis, kind of like what the Blues were. And I'd brought this up early on in the season when they were struggling. It reminds me a lot of what the Blues were, where you would look at individual players and go, okay, well, I like what you're seeing there, but why aren't they winning as a team? And now they're starting to do that. They're right here in the thick of things. I would have thought at this point coming into the year, they were more in like the Marlins/Braves range, where they're about 6 to 7 games under 500. Yeah. You would already write them off as sellers, to your point, and you'd just be looking ahead to, okay, what do we get for Ryan Helsley? They're making this interesting to where at least the trade deadline is going to be very intriguing as to what they do. But I would write off the first half as like a super success for the St. Louis Cardinals.
I do too. Now there's certain guys that I think you want more answers on. You mentioned Jordan Walker. I think on the pitching side, maybe a little bit more answers on Andre Palante, although maybe you know exactly what he is. And then, of course, the injuries to Ivan Herrera, but you know what that is. But look, you still have an opportunity in the second half, which I think you get more answers on when you get to competitive baseball and how players perform. But, yeah, I mean, I thought this team was going to be 5 or 6 games below 500 at this point of the season, talking about selling, and they've exceeded expectations, and now it's just a matter of can you go a little bit further with this. We'll get Brad Thompson's answer on that. Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest. He joins us next on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're hanging with Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Hanging breaking ball from Brad Thompson. And boy, does he get a swing on it. Lift and separate and see you later.
Hanging with BT is sponsored by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Always love our opportunity to catch up with Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, which means it's a Friday, and the Cardinals get set to take on the Cleveland Guardians back out on the road. BT, how are you, buddy?
I am doing great, gentlemen. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing fantastic, man, and it's not the way we wanted to see the series end against the Cubs. You get those first 2 wins, doesn't go well the last 2. You split the 4 games at Busch Stadium. How do you evaluate that series for St. Louis?
Well, look, I would agree with you when you look at, you take the first 2, and you did it in pretty impressive fashion. Really, you took a page out of the Cubs playbook and outsmashed them in the first 2 games. I mean, that first game was ridiculous, right? The 4 2-run home runs, all of the lefties doing damage against their young starter. Next day, 3 home runs. And then you ran into a couple of lefties, right, in Boyd and Imanaga. And if you're going to look for something that if you're going to want to compete down the stretch, like something to figure out is how do you figure out the lefties, right? What righties can you have? And obviously missing Herrera puts a dent in that. But it's disappointing that you don't take 3 of 4 since you took the first 2. But I feel like coming into the series, if you said, hey, you're probably, would you take a split with the Cubbies? I feel like you'd have probably taken that, especially on the heels of taking a series from the Reds. So all in all, I'd say it was a pretty positive homestand. How'd you guys look at it?
I'm with you. I thought it was a positive homestand for the St. Louis Cardinals, and at minimum, you just kind of have the story to be continued against the Chicago Cubs for when you go to Chicago for a chance to potentially gain ground from now until you get there and when you potentially get to Chicago. But I agree with what you said about maybe them looking for answers against left-handed pitching. Do you think, BT, that's probably the biggest question mark that they've got to figure out in the next couple weeks leading up to the trade deadline is what do we have to help us out against left-handed pitching, or is there something else that you think they've got to get an answer on?
Well, I think there are a few things, right? But it absolutely is one of them because you run into a couple of left-handed starters and all of a sudden you feel like you're in a little bit of trouble. And look, most of your best hitters hit from the left side. Left on left is not the easiest thing in the world. So absolutely, I think that's something that you look at and try to evaluate around the trade deadline. So I was talking to the guys on the fast lane the other day, and we were talking about, what do you think this team needs to make what is the difference between them and maybe a championship team, right? Like what little pieces? That is certainly one of them. Like another power right-handed bat or just a right-handed bat that really helps you against lefties. That's certainly a piece of this. And I think another thing that you look at is you're trying to gain some clarity on this ball club before the trade deadline, and they're trying to force the issue as much as they can to put pressure on the front office, is I look at playoff teams and I look at swing and miss. And especially I look at a 1-2 punch. Well, you have a 1 in Sonny Gray, and you're paying him to be that guy. I don't know who that 2 is if you were going to go into a series. Maybe Matthew Liberatore could be that on a given day. It could kind of be any one of the starters. So I think that is the right-handed bat is a big one. And then I think that if you're really trying to push this team over the edge, I think you're looking for more swing and miss in your rotation, and you're looking for more swing and miss at the back end of your bullpen. I think those are the things that you really are able to chase. Now, the problem with that, T-Bone, as you know, everybody's looking for those things. So, it's great to have a shopping list. I don't know if you guys have ever gone shopping and nothing is there. I still think, I'm sure everybody remembers during the COVID times. I remember walking into Sam's Club, and I had a list from my wife. She said, get toilet paper and paper towels. And I look at the aisle, and I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. Probably not going to be able to do that.
You got 2 rolls of paper towel. You got two rolls of paper towels and said one of these is paper towels, the others is toilet paper.
Guys, I ordered online during those times, like many people did, like an industrial-sized box of toilet paper, and this was like it's like the one ply, like you'd never want to use it, and it was sitting in my basement, and I never used it for its intended purpose, but I did have my water heater backed up and flooded, and boy, did that soak up a lot of it. That helped a little bit having that down there.
That's smart. That's smart.
Yeah, it was great. Not its intended purpose, but it worked out really well. But I do think that is going to be the interesting thing as we watch this team play, and you hope they keep applying the pressure. And I love, T-Bone, the way that you put it with the Cubs, like the beginning to the story, because it got a little chippy at the end of it, and I loved every bit of that. See how much pressure they put on it, see what the front office is willing to, wanting to, and able to do.
BT, you were the guy that was like leading charge out of the bullpen when the bench is cleared, right? Like you were the guy that was leading the bullpen. You weren't the guy that was the peacekeeper, right?
As a member of the bullpen, look, generally you're running in and you're having a conversation with the other bullpen as you're running in. Like it's not the craziest. You're not fighting. If anybody really wanted to fight in those aspects of it, usually you'd have a street fight in the outfield with the bullpens. But you never want to be the last guy in. Okay, you don't want to be the guy that's just like, oh, I guess we're doing this, because when you do get in it, the head better be on a swivel. You learn a couple of things in those little scrums. One, don't grab your own players. Why? Because you don't want to be the guy that's pulling your guy back, holding his arms while he gets punched in the face. Like Smart. That you want to talk about a horrible teammate. Helping the other team punch your player is not a good one. And then two, always be ready, knowing when the game could get a little chippy, and maybe don't be in the bathroom, because I had a fellow reliever who missed an entire fight because he was sitting on the john. And he popped out, and everybody was already on the field. He's like, well, I bet might as well just stay here now. This seems more embarrassing.
They'll be coming back the other way sooner or later, so worst time to go to the bathroom at that point. I always figured you'd want to be like the scene in Big Daddy when you throw the stick at the rollerblader going down the hill. You just find a way to trip one of the other guys on the side before they make their way out there, so he's the one on the blooper reel.
That's a good call, too. Like you could do that. There's a lot. Look, one of my favorite videos is Giovanni Gallegos going straight over, jumping over the wall like he was bout it. It was go time. So the chippiness, right? You're not looking to get in fights when you're playing baseball games. But I dig me some bad blood, like especially divisional play, chasing down a rival. I love it, and somehow, some way, Wilson Contreras continues to find himself being the genesis of this, whether it's against the Brewers or it's against the Cubbies, and I dig it. Like I think that this team needs some of that. I think you need somebody that has that intensity, that fire. And I know he talked about it after the game. He said, hey, that's my bad. I apologize to the Cubs. He runs a little hot, as we all know. But to me, when I know two teams don't like each other, guys, I want to watch. I want to dig into that a little bit more. When next time the Dodgers and the Padres play, you bet your butt that I'm going to be staying up late watching West Coast baseball, because those two teams hate each other, and I want to watch it. I think that there's something to that rivalry from a fan standpoint.
BT, one more from me, and I want to go just kind of back to the team fighting to show the front office, look, we're worth investing in, we're worth buying some assets for so that we can make a run in the second half of the season. You're past the midway point of the season now, 82 games in. Do you feel like you've learned enough about this team for the answers that they were hoping for once the season began?
No, not necessarily. At least not on an every player individual basis. I still don't think that we have an answer on Walker. I still don't think that we have a definitive answer on Gorman. I still don't think that we have a definitive answer on maybe even Nootbaar, right, who has had some ups and downs when it comes to your young players in that runway. I do think that there's clarity in Matthew Liberatore. At least I believe. I believe that he is a big league starter for you, and you've got a cost-controlled one, and that's a beautiful thing. But overall, I still think that those questions expectations that you had coming into the season, I feel like a lot of them are going to take a full year to really figure it out. I mean, what do you think? What do you think that you've learned, or is there anything that you feel like you've gleaned already from this half of the season that you know?
I mean, I feel like I'm starting to learn, and maybe there's still more answers to be had. I'm starting to learn that Alec Burleson is becoming a key piece of this team moving forward. To where at the beginning of the season, BT, I thought that might just be a complementary piece that may or may not be a part of this roster's future.
That's it. That is a great one. He has absolutely become a dude. And I know that he is a guy that, like, roundabout in different deals over the years, teams have asked about. I've had different scouts from different teams ask me about Burleson and what kind of a player he is. Like, I'm very grateful that that he is certainly still around. And you want to talk about somebody just taking an opportunity and ripping a job from it? That's Alec Burleson, because you're right. He was kind of on the outside looking in. You looked at the plans every day, and the plans were to have Walker out there and Scott and Newbar every single day, and there were going to be limited at-bats for Alec Burleson. And he said, the hell with that. I'm just going to go ahead and rake. And, oh, by the way, play some great defense. Are you kidding me with some of the plays that he's been making recently? The one into the netting, that's outstanding. Little sliding grab down the line against the Cubbies the other day. We had Tony La Russa in the booth with us at the time, and he said, who was that, Larry Walker? Like, he's been awesome. I think that's a great one that you pointed out, because you're right. He is definitely a part of what you're doing in the future.
And BT, one thing that I don't know if it's fair to say I've learned, but it's where it gets very complicated when you talk about Jordan Walker. Look, there's no denying the struggles. He's not hitting at the plate, and now he's injured on the IL. But like when we talk about guys we learn, like Alec Burleson, okay, well, where's he playing if this is who he is? Well, right now the answer is the outfield. Lars Nootbaar, I'm just going by his past. I assume he's going to finish about 10 to 15% above league average. And the DH spot is kind of clogged up with Ivan Herrera, because you got to keep that bat in the lineup in the everyday process. So I feel like one thing I kind of learned at the halfway point is I just don't know where that playing time comes from Jordan Walker when he is healthy and when you do want to get him into the lineup.
I know, and it really is. I mean, if you're Oli, if you're this staff, yes, you want to give the young man. And by the way, again, let's remind everybody of how young Jordan Walker is. He's 23 years old. So to think that he's even close to a finished product is silly. But you're trying to balance a couple of things. Yes, you want a young man to grow, and the only way to grow at the big league level is to play at the big league level. But you've also got a team that is playing some winning baseball, and I think that they deserve to have the best roster out there on the field every day, and that doesn't always have Jordan Walker in it when he's healthy. So I think it's going to be interesting, T-Bone, down the stretch, how they utilize him, what he does with it. Because the thing is, look, if Jordan Walker gets in the lineup and he goes on a tear, he's going to play every day. They want him to play every day. They would love that. Again, another right-handed bat in this lineup that's doing damage, yes, please. Like, they need some more of that. But he is going to have to earn it. I think that is going to be one of the biggest keys down the stretch, is not how many at-bats is Jordan Walker given, how many does he earn? I think that is going to be what I want to watch in the second half for him.
One more quick follow-up on that, BT. If he doesn't earn that spot, what does his future then look like for the Cardinals? Are they at an inflection point if he doesn't do what you're talking about there, which is take that spot and then run with it and get hot down the stretch?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if the answer is, like, you could send him down to AAA this year if you wanted to, and he's going to dominate AAA pitching because they make mistakes on the inner half, and everybody will say, bring him back up. He's hitting 300. And then you might end up having the same thing happen again, right? But it's hard for me to say you're at that point with Walk again, just going back to his age. Like, he's still only 23 years old. You hope that he's able to unlock some different things with his swing. You hope he's able to unlock more things with his swing decisions, because I think that we saw that getting better and better. And I truly do still believe in the upside and the talent of this guy, but he's going to have to put it together himself. So I don't think that they're at an inflection point. I don't think that they're at a hey, let's move Walker point. But I think that they're at a point where they need to be able to play the guys that are helping them day in and day out, and he's going to have to prove he's in that mix.
BT, always appreciate the time, my man. Enjoy the series against the Guardians, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next Friday.
All right, gentlemen, enjoy your weekend as well, and I'll talk to you then.
There you go. BT, Brad Thompson, always with us on the Collier and Thompson hotline every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. I do think that's going to be the biggest storyline going down the rest of the season. It's going to be And I like the way the BT framed that. It's going to be how many opportunities are you getting and what you do with it.
Yeah, the one thing, like the biggest question mark for me in the second half for the St. Louis Cardinals isn't so much about like what the trade deadline holds. I think that's a question mark. I think the biggest one is, will they get enough answers on Walker to come to a conclusion at the end of the season?
Yeah.
And if not, like, do you run another year with Jordan Walker out there? Do you try and capitalize on his value if there still is value in the offseason? That is the biggest thing for me. But, like, watching Alec Burleson and Lars Nootbaar play and Ivan Herrera when he's been healthy and playing, to me, he's not going to, even if he gets hot, it's going to be hard for him to take those guys out unless Burleson just really goes through it like he did in the second half. But I don't see that coming for him. So that's where I find it so interesting with what they're going to do with Jordan Walker down the stretch.
Well, we do have the lineup just posted from the Cardinals. I won't spoil it for everybody. The lineup game, if the Fast Lane does play it. So if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say, turn on your radio. 3, 2, 1. Lars Nootbaar back in the lineup. So Nuke goes to left field, Donovan back at second base, Gorman at DH for you. So you get that back in, and I think it can ease some of the nerves after being shut out in back-to-back games against the Chicago Cubs. Tanner Hendricks in Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind. But coming up next, we'll play One's Gotta Go. You send us 3 scenarios. We'll tell you which one has to go on Friday here on 101 ESPN.
Text us anytime at 314-399-9646 on the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line on 101 ESPN. ESPN has your chance to meet Adam Wainwright at this year's Big League Bash at the Factory July 27th. Our winner will receive 2 tickets to the Big League Bash, featuring Adam Wainwright in concert, along with appearances from Cardinals players and Fred Bird, a silent auction, and more. All to support Big League Impact. Plus, our winner and guest will receive 2 passes to meet Waino prior to the show. Tickets to the Big League Bash, supported by Community America Credit Union, are on sale now. Find all the details and that chance to win free Big League Bash tickets and meet and greet passes to meet Adam Wainwright right now at 101ESPN.com and on your 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Gray goes after win number 8. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals ace Sonny Gray will start tonight's series versus the Guardians in Cleveland. Lars Nootbaar returns to Oli Marmol's lineup, as does Victor Scott II. St. Louis naturally aiming to rebound from consecutive shutout losses. Stephen Vogt's team also was blanked yesterday. Toronto prevailing 6-zip, allowing just 2 hits. NHL draft festivities, they finally arrive at 6 o'clock as well on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario, Chris Kerber taking you inside Enterprise Center for coverage. STL currently owning that 19th overall pick. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big pen.
Couple of NHL rumor updates for you because it's that time of the year. One from Elliot Friedman. Sabres haven't been getting the offers they want for Bo Byram. See how that develops over the next couple of days. And then this recently from David Pagnotta. Islanders remain active. In addition to all of their action, I'm told some teams have called the Islanders about Matt Barzal, including Utah and Vancouver. Don't get the sense anything is close right now, but some clubs have inquired. I brought Barzal up. This had to be about a month ago if that could be an option for the Islanders. I didn't think it was possible, but if teams are calling, maybe things can change from there. But the craziness continues at 6 o'clock tonight. Fastlane will have you covered until then. And then, of course, myself and Chris Kerber, like Bradford mentioned, take care of you from there. Let's go on this. By the way, it is One's Gotta Go. You send us 3 scenarios. We'll tell you which one has to go. 314-399-9646, Air Comfort Service text line. Over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cams brought to you by Air Alliance Team. One has to go: summer, winter, spring, or fall. I think nobody's going to say summer after this one.
Oh, I would get rid of summer. I hate this weather. And
that's what I meant. Nobody's going to keep summer after this one.
I would get rid of summer. I mean, this weather sucks. It's 100 degrees out. You walk outside and you feel like you're in a sauna. I'm getting rid of it. I can handle the extreme cold from the winter. I hate the heat. Get summer the hell out of here.
Bar none, this guy's favorite season is the fall. But if there's one that has to go in this instance, guys, the last couple of years have hammered this home for me. It has to be spring because this is a totally personal selection. But selfishly, the allergies, everything, that point of the year, that season, my goodness, the storms as well. No, spring has to get out for me. Keep the summer.
Yeah, I think I'm still getting rid of winter. As hot as it is, like, I still enjoy this type of weather when I can go outside and do stuff. I hate in the wintertime when you basically can't go outside. Like, and taking the snow away from it, because that's like 1 month in St. Louis. You get 3 months of freezing cold weather and you can't do anything. Stuck inside. That's not fun for me. So I'm going to get rid of winter on this one.
I don't want to go outside in 100-degree heat, though. Like, it's not fun out now.
But at least I go to the pool. What are you going to do in the winter when there's no snow?
Watch football.
CFP expanded version, baby.
Let me tell you. All right, one's got to go. 4th of July edition, 100-degree heat, thunderstorms, or fireworks. They didn't have fireworks in there. I put fireworks in there because I'm getting rid of fireworks. I cannot believe people are already shooting them off. You people are the worst.
A little early.
Like, just stop it already. I don't need bottle rockets on June 25th.
This is what we do.
You shoot it off on the weekend of 4th of July, and you stop the Monday after 4th of July.
I support that.
Enough already.
I support that rant. I'm not getting rid of fireworks, though, because I enjoy fireworks on the 4th of July. I'm still getting rid of the heat. A spot-up thunderstorm, I can handle that. Like, it just rained here in Maryland Heights where we're at. I can, or Creve Coeur, I can handle that. Get rid of the heat. If we can have a nice, beautiful 4th of July, I'm in.
Exactly. I'm okay with a little thunderstorm in isolation, but since the 100-degree heat was specified, no, you can inch into the 90s. Just don't give me ridiculous humidity. Get it out.
Let's go draft edition from the 314. NHL draft, MLB draft, NBA draft. Which one did I miss?
NFL.
NFL, thank you. There's a lot of N's in there.
So I would keep NFL. I would keep NBA. I mean, you see most of those guys like right off the bat when they get drafted. I'm debating between MLB and NHL.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would lean towards getting rid of the MLB because they can't trade picks.
Yeah, there's no excitement going into the draft.
So there's nothing that like really can change. Like, I mean, we just saw 2 first-round picks get traded in the NHL, and that hasn't happened a lot over the last couple of years. But you kind of see the draft here in the NHL is kind of a deadline of its own. So I would keep the NHL draft. I would get rid of the Major League Baseball draft. You don't see those guys for 3 or 4 years. There's no trading of picks. Like, it's just kind of blah. It happens and you don't really know about it.
Yeah, I was telling Bradford though that the NBA draft
it is too confusing.
It's just confusing and boring. Not what it was.
I think all drafts are boring, right? Like you couldn't pay me to go out. BK went to the draft in.
Yeah, I think NFL's probably the most
Kansas
exciting.
City.
NHL one was fun. Like when we did Nashville, it was cool to see the environment, but I'd never do it more than once.
Sure, but we were working, so like. If you said, hey, Tanner, you want to go to Nashville and go watch the draft? I'd go, oh, no, not at all. But, like, we were working. We were talking with, like, Doug Armstrong, working behind the scenes, getting information. Like, that's fun. That's what makes our job so fun.
Yeah, I would love to attend and or just cover the NFL draft at some point. Natural progression. You go from the combine and then to the draft, see what it would be like. I'd have to go with MLB dumping it in this instance as well because, let's be honest, when you get to a certain round, we don't really know that much either about these prospects to be, even if you are a draft Nick. So too many prospects, too many rounds.
One's got to go holiday edition, Halloween, Thanksgiving, or Christmas.
Oh, this isn't even close for me, Halloween.
It's not fair.
Yeah. Christmas, I love the Christmas season. I love Christmas music, all the festivities with it. I love Thanksgiving, especially the meal and watching football for the entire day. Halloween, I don't care. I don't want to dress up. Don't knock on my door for candy. I'm out. I'm a begrudging. Get Halloween the hell out of here.
I feel like your mind I was that way, and then my mind changes when you have kids because it's fun. I think mine's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the most forgettable holiday out there.
Really?
People pass over it all the time. Like stores pass over it. I don't know. It feels like it's fun.
Stores have Black Friday for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, which basically now doesn't open until 9 a.m. or something on Black Friday. Like it used to be, you'd go there and I appreciate that they did that because it took people away from their family on Thanksgiving. I don't know. Thanksgiving's just kind of like, okay, this was fun. Like I like the football. Food's okay. That's about it.
True.
Oh man, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Halloween's fun when you have kids, when you get to see the actual excitement of it all.
I enjoy Halloween on the low. I really do. Let me flip this around for you. If I were to insert Easter into the conversation, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Easter.
Big three. Oh, really?
Easter's a disaster.
Not close?
No, Easter's a disaster.
Close.
People don't know how to do Easter. I complained about this after Easter on our show, that who schedules Easter egg hunts after dinner? That's what everybody does. And I'm like, or after a meal. And it's like, cool, you expect my 4-year-old to pass up on the sugar so they could sit down and eat ham? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I would still get rid of Easter, too.
Yeah. All right, one's got to go. Final one here. Blues prospects, Cardinals prospects, or NFL prospects? I don't really think NFL prospects aren't a thing.
No.
You're either an NFL player or you're not.
Unless they're talking like college players or kind of the prospects.
Moving into the pros.
Yeah, I would say...
I guess we'll take the Blues and Cardinals out of this too. It's NHL prospects.
Yeah, I would say
baseball prospects.
Cardinals prospects / MLB prospects.
That was mine as well.
And the reason for it is they are so freaking overvalued at the Major League Baseball level.
They don't matter.
NHL, I don't get the sense that outside a handful of guys do teams really care about. And typically what happens is those guys end up being pretty good. Baseball, man, they hold on to so many prospects, and I'm only using him here as an example. Like Jordan Walker, right? He was a top 15 prospect in Major League Baseball. That guy was supposed to be cannot miss, is going to be a stud. And he can't lay off a slider low and away 3 years into his Major League career. And that's the kind of guy that the Cardinals would say, he's going to live or die in our system, right? So I just think prospects get so overvalued at the Major League Baseball level, and it feels like teams are more worried about the prospects they have than the fact that, hey, you should be winning at the Major League level.
Yeah, sorry, you guys can't get me to drop the NFL prospects. The more I can wax poetic on Luther Burden III, Armand Mimbu, etc. BK's not here today, so I'm going to take that opportunity.
Sad news in Cardinals Nation, guys. Jose Herrera has elected for free agency. DFA'd, and he said there's teams in Japan that are interested in him, and that's where he will be heading. So he's gone now, T-Bone. You don't have to mispronounce his name.
Good for him
anymore.
if he's got offers in Japan.
It works for a lot of people.
We've seen a lot of guys can resurrect their careers by going over to Japan. So if he can get playing time over in the NPB, good for him.
Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll rewind it next on 101 ESPN.
Tomorrow, Cardinals and Guardians. Pre-game at 2:30. First pitch 3:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. Whether it's a home that you have, a business that you have, you need to trust the professionals. And Darren and his team over at Rhino Shield, man, they've got so many different people, whether it's business owners or just residential homeowners that are calling them to use their service. And you talk about trust. How about this one? There's a house over in University City that was built 100 years ago, and it needed a new look, and they called Rhino Shield because of their great work. And they redid everything, a stucco and wood soft lift building, decorative brick, and it looks brand new today to give that retro feel. It's a ceramic coating process that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any paint you're going to buy over the store at the hardware store. On top of that, it's 100% waterproof. When you deal with all the rain like we just got, it deflects deflects 90% of the UV rays so the sun doesn't beat down and deteriorate it. It's all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. So call Darren today, tell him Alex Ferrario sent you, and get Rhino Shield's work for the exterior of your home or business. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Round here on BK and Ferrario, along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Appreciate Bradford once again helping us out as BK is out today, obviously. He'll be back with us on Monday. We'll have the full gang back together on Monday, which, by the way, Tuesday and Wednesday, we are going to be out broadcasting at development camp. Hope to be joined by a lot of the Blues top prospects from there, as well as maybe some front office members. And, of course, that's day one and day two of free agency in the NHL. So we will be broadcasting from the Centene Community Ice Center on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Tonight, myself and Chris Kerber will be broadcasting from Enterprise Center for night one of the NHL Draft. We'll have some guests along the way. I think we're going to be joined by Jim Montgomery, Doug Armstrong, Tony Feltrin, the 19th overall pick, when/if it's selected. And then, of course, plenty of hockey talk and reaction to what takes place. That will be live here on 101 ESPN following the Fast Lane, and it will be up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. If you missed anything from our show today, be sure to go check that out on the podcast page afterwards. We interviewed Mike McKenna about the draft and the new CBA in the NHL. We talked cards with Brad Thompson. We had plenty of draft conversation for tonight and this weekend leading into free agency and the Cardinals series against the Cubs reaction. All of that over on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com, presented by Schaefer Door Company, and our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL and the 101 ESPN app, which is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Center. Steve-O, let's start with NHL Draft Night and then end on the Cardinals series against the Guardians. A lot of rumors swirling around the NHL, the Blues, with a lot of potential trades that still could go down. We saw Dobson traded a little bit ago. He went to the Montreal Canadiens. Byram's name is still out there. I think the biggest thing is it seems the Blues are playing aggressive. Elliot Friedman saying that the Blues are being aggressive. Darren Dreger saying that the Blues have been tied to Bo Byram. I don't know what their plan is going to be, and frankly, I don't know if anything happens, but it sure seems like Doug is trying to find ways to shake up, improve this roster, rather than just draft at 19th overall and move forward with the same team.
Yeah, they appear to be wanting to be aggressive, and my sense on it is, I mean, all the reports are tying them to defensemen. My guess is, especially since Kyrou's name's been reported out there, if you're moving Kyrou, I don't think there's a defenseman out there that is a one-for-one swap. So my guess, they're trying to acquire a defenseman and a center maybe in the same trade. If I had to guess right now, just based on the way things stand, I think they will be selecting with that 19th overall pick. I think he wants to be aggressive. I just don't think he can find the right deal that's out there for him right now. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there's a big splash here in the next, 4 hours before the draft gets underway. But my gut tells me they're going to be selecting that 19th overall pick.
Bold prediction, between now and Monday when we return, do we see a Blues trade? That doesn't involve a 5th or a 6th round draft pick.
I'm going to say no. I don't think they're going to get anything accomplished till we get into free agency, and then maybe you see something based on what somebody signs, like what you keep saying, like maybe when Vegas does get word of, hey, Marner is signing, then maybe they trade you Nicholas Wall, for example. Yeah. So I'll say no for now.
Bradford, what do you think? I know you're kind of churning like 17 things over there, so put you on the spot.
It's all good. Under no way, shape, or form, or in no way, shape, or form are you going to ultimately have a Jordan Kyrou dealt. As far as any transaction is concerned, no, guys, I'm actually saying that the Blues remain neutral in that capacity. I think that ultimately you will see this organization stand pat, make the number 19 overall selection, and maybe a little bit of tweaking down the line. But as far as this weekend is concerned, not feeling it.
Cardinals side of things, you split the series against the Cubs. You win the first two. Your offense goes dry in the last two. You essentially gain no ground on the Cubs. I think the Brewers gained a half a game on the Cubs. They're up on you a little bit. T-Bone, I said this, and I know you and BT are on the other side of this. I do feel like you left something off the table. It feels a little disappointing that you didn't get the series win. But look, you can fix all of that concern if you pick up series wins against Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Even if you split with the Cubs, that shows you're right there with them, but it's about catching them, and that's where you have to capitalize on the next two matchups that, yes, I know Pittsburgh has some elite pitching, but you should be able to have your way with both of those teams in the next two series.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed by a split of the Chicago Cubs, especially because they were shorthanded in the series. No Ivan Herrera, who's on the IL. No Nootbaar for the final 2 games. And without Ivan Herrera, like, you're just not going to match up well against left-handed pitching. BT laid that out well. I think it continues to be the story is more of a TBD, to be determined, to be continued. That series in Chicago will be huge 4th of July weekend. Hopefully you can gain some ground, maybe a game or 2 before you get to Chicago, and then hopefully you can take advantage and win that series. But I'm not disappointed. I think at a minimum you had to split this series, and they did the bare minimum. Now they go to Cleveland, and they see 3 right-handed starters, so hopefully that's how the offense gets back on track.
You just hit the nail on the head. 2 consecutive right-handers to begin this series. I, for one, am really interested in tonight's series opener. You're very optimistic about having Nootbaar. He is back in the lineup. That is confirmed, trying to really parlay some of that momentum, get it back. Victor Scott II, once again, manning center field. And you're going against a Guardians team that, 1, wasn't especially good in its last series against Toronto, and number 2, apparently won't have one Jose Ramirez at its disposal tonight. Let it fly.
Yeah, we'll see what Sonny Gray can do. We'll see what the offense can do to see if they put themselves back in the win column later on tonight out in Cleveland. Again, we've got the NHL Draft Show tonight starting at 6 o'clock. If you missed anything, check it out on our podcast page, 101 ESPN STL. That's our YouTube channel, 101ESPN.com, the website, the easy-to-use app presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Also, check out the Redbird Report podcast. Tanner and BK sat down with Rob Serfolio, assistant Cardinals general manager, and the Last Minute Blues podcast, a primer for this weekend's draft, myself and Jeremy Rutherford. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Be safe. Don't die out there in the heat. We'll talk to you Monday. Huge thank you to Bradford Bruns. The Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.